Reading the craziest Reddit stories I could find. Story 1. Am I the asshole for having a server removed from my wedding because he decided to cut me off, in quotes, at my own open bar? Here's the full story. I, 27 female, Maris, got married 3 weeks ago. We paid $15,000 for a top-shelf open bar for our guests. About 2 hours into the reception, right after dinner, I went to the bar to get a second glass of champagne. The bartender, Silas, who was hired through the catering company, put his hand over my glass and said, "I think you've had enough, sweetheart. It's unladylike for the bride to be stumbling on her big day." I was completely sober. I had 1 glass of wine during speeches. I asked him if he was joking. He doubled down, saying it was his policy, in quotes, to pace the bridges. Oops, I misspoke. To pace the brides so they don't embarrass themselves. I didn't argue. I walked straight to the catering manager, explained what happened, and demanded Silas be removed from the property immediately. He was fired on the spot and escorted out. Now, a few of my friends are saying I overreacted and got a guy fired who was just trying to look out for me. Wow, okay, what a story here. So yeah, Maris comes in sharing they got married 3 weeks ago, and they paid $15,000 for a top-shelf open bar for the guests at the wedding. Now, for reference here, $15,000 just for an open bar is insanely expensive. Like, that's the kind of numbers that people are usually paying for catering. Wow, that is a lot of money for open bar. Now, the person does say it's for the guests, but yeah, they say 2 hours into the reception right after dinner, she went to the bar to get a second glass of champagne, and assuming that she's being honest, it's just the second glass of champagne. That really is not a lot. You could probably have a few drinks, and as long as you're eating food, it really is no big deal. But the bartender said, "I think you've had enough. It's unladylike for the bride to be stumbling on her big day," and she was completely sober. She had 1 wine of glass during the speeches. So that's a pretty out-of-pocket thing to say. Honestly, I really do think the bartender here is in the wrong. It's her big day. She's the one getting married. If her and her spouse decided that they want to, have 1 or 2 glasses, which is exactly what they're doing, that's fine. If they decide they want to get sloppy drunk, well, gee, that's their decision. They're paying for all of this. So, essentially, it's not even I'm looking out for you. Really what it is she did not get what she paid for. So the bartender 100% is in the wrong here. So I totally think that the catering manager, demanding the bartender Silas to be removed from the property immediately, that is dramatic. I genuinely think it could have just been like a slap on the wrist, like, hey, please serve the bride and the groom or whoever it is, please serve them. And, don't ask any questions because they're paying for the service. So we need to, provide the service to them. And, maybe just a stern talking to after. Getting the bartender removed from the property, I don't know, that seems a little extreme because he was fired on the spot and escorted out. So I don't think the person writing the story and sharing this story, I don't think they overreacted. I do think the catering manager maybe went a hair too far by firing the bartender and escorting them on the spot. I genuinely think it could have just been like a slap on the wrist kind of thing. But that's the thing. I don't think it's on the 27 female Maris person who shared the story. I don't think it's on them, that the guy got fired. It's absolutely not on them. Something was wrong here. She wasn't getting the service that she paid for. So she spoke up about it. And what the catering manager decided to do was completely out of her control. Anyways, this is a pretty wild thing. I know that I think a lot of people are sensitive about a married couple at their wedding getting sloppy, and some people share stories where they completely get blackout drunk and they don't remember anything from their special night. Now, I get it, especially if the bartender Silas has witnessed that and vowed to himself he's going to look out for people, but I genuinely think that 2 glasses of champagne is not really anything to fuss about. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a valid concern, but it's just not his place. It really should be between the 2 people getting married, to decide what the boundary is for drinking. But on that note, though, I definitely get it because to spend, like, we don't even know how much these people spent on a wedding, but you know, minimum, we know that they spent $15,000 minimum just for the open bar. So they probably spent a lot of money. So, you know, you want to make sure that you remember it. That's pretty much it, you know. But it doesn't sound like this person, Maris, was getting anywhere close to that territory at all. So I don't think she was in the wrong. I get where the bartender was coming from, but he was in the wrong. And you know, Maris, the person who shared this story, it's just not their responsibility what the catering manager did. I think she did everything as well as she could have. You know, something was wrong and she spoke up, and that's a super important thing to do. So I think that she didn't do anything wrong. All right, let's go to the next story. Story number 2. My ex-fiance begged for another chance. I said yes on the condition he shows me his bank statements. He immediately blocked me. I, 29 female, Mariah, broke off my engagement with Calum, 31 male, a year ago because he was a chronic liar. He lied about his job title, his debt, and even lied about paying the venue deposit for our wedding, which we almost lost. Last week, he showed up at my favorite coffee shop looking sharp. He gave this massive tearful speech about how he went to therapy, got a promotion, paid off his debts, and realized I was the love of his life. He asked for one dinner to prove he was a changed man. I looked at him and said, okay, I'll go to dinner. But you have to open your banking app and show me your accounts right now. His face completely dropped. He stammered, got defensive, and said I was being financially abusive and not trusting the new him, in quotes, new him. He stormed out of the coffee shop, and by the time I got to my car, he had blocked me on every single social media platform. Turns out from a mutual friend, he just lost his job and is getting evicted. Wow, this is a crazy, crazy story. I have to say, this person who shared the story, Mariah, good job for breaking off your engagement with this guy, Calum. I cannot imagine how she found out that he was a chronic liar, but he lied about his job title, his debt, and lied about paying the venue deposit for the wedding, which they almost lost. They almost lost the venue. So that's a lot to lie about. I mean, there's a reason why financial infidelity, that's actually a term, that's a thing. But that's crazy though, how she broke off the engagement. And honestly, like, if you know, I think it's completely valid, you know, like, he lied about paying the venue deposit and then they almost lost the venue. So at that point, like, what more do you have to lose if you've just been lied to repeatedly? It makes sense why she would break off the engagement. But yeah, for him to show up at her favorite coffee shop, I think that's completely out of pocket. That's totally out of hand. And yeah, to give this massive tearful speech, clearly it's all an act, tearing up about all this stuff. Yeah, he was clearly just crying about losing his job and getting evicted. But yeah, oh, I went to therapy, I got a promotion, he paid off his debts, and he realized that, you know, she was the love of his life. And he asked for one dinner to prove he was a changed man. So this is the part that I want to yap about a little bit. I just don't think that, you know, if for someone to lie this much, I don't think you can just suddenly prove it in one night. You know, this is something that would take months, if not years. It depends on how deep and how long the chronic lying was going on for. So it's good that this person, Mariah, realized she was being sold snake oil. It doesn't sound like she's dumb, you know, she sounds like she's very smart and she could see through it all. So it's super clever for him to say, okay, I'll go to dinner, but you have to open your banking app and show me your accounts. Wild though, that he got defensive. That's usually a telltale sign that someone is just not going to be true to their word. But the craziest thing though, is that he goes all out and he says that she was being financially abusive and not trusting the new him. That is just not financial abuse. That's asking for transparency and honesty. Now, the crazy thing here is that honesty, I think, is just being honest, you know. Maybe you're not sharing something with someone and then you decide to be honest and you say, hey, I had a really difficult time sharing this with you, but, you know, you need to know. And that's the big thing about the truth. The reason why the truth is important is because people who are closest to us, they deserve to have the full information about whatever situation they're in so that they can actually make a good faith decision based on the truth. If someone doesn't have the truth and then they're making decisions based on lies, it's not fair to them. It's completely unfair. So she was demanding fairness there. Like, it wasn't financially abusive at all. If anything, what this guy Caleb was doing was financial abuse. To be getting engaged or married to someone and to lie about your job title, your debt, to lie about paying things, like, that's financial abuse. In the same way that emotional abuse is lying about things, or, you know, just being disrespectful for the sake of being disrespectful. It's wild that he totally was, what's the word I'm looking for? Not quite deflecting, but I would say, but I can't remember the right word. It's like mirroring or something. But when someone is just guilty of something, so they end up using that phrase towards the other person. Anyways, though, he stormed out of the coffee shop, and by the time that she got to her car, he blocked her on every single social media platform. So that's pretty wild. I don't know what this attempt was supposed to be about. I don't know if he was just going to, like, use her, you know, and hope that he could just, like, get his feet back on the ground, and then he was just going to continue lying again and just leave her or something. But wild, though, that from a mutual friend, she finds out that he just lost his job and he's getting evicted. This totally was some sort of crazy last-ditch attempt to, I don't know, survive. But, like, dude, just go get a job. I like, literally live out of your car if you have to, or live out of, you know, whatever. Do what you can, but just get a job. Dear Lord. Anyways, this was a crazy story. It's never worth it to lie. The truth always comes out. Just be honest. But I think the problem here is that people who end up chronically lying, they have some deep-rooted issues that they need to iron out. So, fantastic news that the person who shared this story, Mariah, could, you know, unfortunately, it was probably very painful to find out that, you know, he was lying so much, but really good on setting boundaries for themselves, because boundaries are meant to protect ourselves. So, all right, let's step on to the next story, story number 3. Am I the asshole for grounding my 16-year-old daughter in a Tokyo hotel room for ruining our family vacation? Wow, this one's wild. I, 45 male Theron, saved up for 3 years to take my family on a 2-week dream vacation to Japan. My 16-year-old daughter, Lyra, has been a nightmare since we landed. She complains about the walking, she refuses to eat the food, and she spends the entire time on FaceTime with her boyfriend back home. The breaking point was yesterday. I paid a premium for a private bullet train ticket to Kyoto. Lyra refused to wake up, telling me to chill out and that she'd just meet us later. When I forced her out of bed, she live streamed herself on TikTok, crying about how abusive I was for being... I'm sorry, I just completely misread that. Crying about how abusive I was being for making her do lame tourist crap and calling the trip cheap. That was it. I took her phone, canceled her ticket for the theme park we were supposed to go to the next day, and told her she was grounded. She is spending the next 3 days in the hotel room with my wife, who volunteered to stay behind and work remotely. While my younger son and I enjoy Kyoto, Lyra says I am ruining her high school memories. Wow. What in the world is this story? Now, this is an interesting one, because I haven't read too many parenting stories here. Now, the way that you approach this and your opinion about this really depends on how you would parent someone. But it's crazy that the person who shared the story, Theron, saved up for 3 years. That's a long time to save up for a dream vacation to Japan. And the fact that it's 2 weeks and he's taking his entire family. That's a really nice thing to do for your family. And I think Japan is a really, really cool trip. But his daughter, who's 16-year-old, Lyra, has been a nightmare. Now, I don't know how to pronounce the name. Lyra has been a nightmare since they landed. She complains about the walking, refuses to eat the food, and she spends the entire time on FaceTime with her boyfriend back home. So that's crazy, because, like, complaining about the walking, you're going on a vacation and you're seeing, like, really amazing things. Probably very beautiful things. Refusing to eat the food, too. I can't imagine how expensive the food is. So he's buying food and she's just not eating. So I have no idea how that's working out. And the fact that she's spending her entire time on FaceTime with her boyfriend back home, that's pretty rough. But it sounds like Theron had his breaking point, which he described was yesterday at the time of writing the story and sharing it with everyone. He paid a premium for the private bullet train tickets to Kyoto. That's a lot of money to book a private bullet train. That's crazy. But she wasn't like, oh, I slept in. His daughter refused to wake up. So she was awake. She just wouldn't get out of bed. And that she was just going to meet us later. Now, this is a point where, it really depends on your parenting style. For me personally, upon hearing the story, I know that Theron spent a lot of money on everything that's been going on here. But if I were him, I personally would just say, all right, you know what, fine. You haven't been having fun, so, you're just going to stay here. And, you better behave, these are the boundaries. If you're going anywhere, you need to communicate with us, or you need to stay in the hotel room while we're out, or whatever it may be. It really depends on what route you want to take here. But I get it. I get it that he spent a lot of money on this private bullet train, and she's just kind of wasting the trip for herself. 16 years old. This is an amazing memory to be in Japan for 2 weeks. So I get why Theron forced her out of bed. But they're both kind of in the wrong here a bit, because she starts live streaming herself on TikTok, which is the cringiest thing you could possibly do. And then she starts crying about how her dad is abusive on a live stream on TikTok for making her do lame tourist crap and calling the trip cheap. Now, I can see how that was an absolute, just straw that broke the camel's back. I can absolutely see how Theron just completely lost his cool and just completely exploded here. And honestly, if I were in the situation, I would have done the same thing. I think for his own sanity, he really should have drew the line at the "she'll just meet us later." And when she said that and refused to get out of bed, I would have just said, all right, I'm having fun. This is a dream vacation. I'm not going to let you ruin this trip. So just stay in the hotel room and please stay safe. Just set some boundaries there. But I feel like he didn't really set a boundary there. And he tried forcing her to get out of bed. And then she starts live streaming it totally in the wrong, calling him abusive, which is horrible. So I could see how he just completely lost his cool. So yeah, Theron took her phone, canceled her ticket for the theme park for the next day, and he grounded her. And now she's spending the next 3 days in the hotel room with his wife, who volunteered to stay behind and work remotely. So I do think, while I wouldn't have done that, I would have just drew the line before I completely lost my cool. I think it's nice, at least, that Theron and his spouse, his wife, volunteered to stay behind and work remotely. Maybe that was for the sake of sort of making up some of the money that was spent, because he's been saving up for 3 years. This is 3 years in the making. And, his daughter's just completely disrespecting this trip. Then again, though, I do wonder, did they have any conversation about, hey, do you even want to go on this trip, But I totally get it. You have a family, you have a teen, you don't want to leave them at home for 2 weeks. What are the other options here? They're going to stay with grandma. You're like, what if you don't have grandparents, So this is just sort of a tricky situation. I think they did manage it to the best of their ability. And I think it's nice. It does sort of get a happy ending that Theron and his younger son could enjoy Kyoto together. But his daughter says that he is ruining her high school memories. Honestly, I get it. She's dating this guy, and she just wants to spend all of her time with him. I think that she's completely out of line here. I don't necessarily think that Theron had to be so harsh with it. I'm assuming that they had a conversation and everyone knew and could prepare for the fact that, hey, we're going to be in Japan. We're going to be in a whole other country for 2 weeks. So I'm sure that this Lyra person, his daughter, had the time to mentally prepare. So I do think she's being completely unreasonable. I have nothing wrong with the way that Theron and his wife handled the situation, but I personally would have just drew a line for a boundary way sooner before I completely lost my cool and just exploded. So that's just my opinion. And this was a pretty wild one. So hopefully they enjoy the rest of the trip, though. And, hopefully she'll just sort of behave a little bit better and just appreciate it. Because while she's saying that he ruined her high school memories, he's providing like something that I don't think she realizes, like she's really taking for granted, and she's not appreciating something that some people would literally die for, you know, to go to Japan for 2 weeks. That's a really amazing trip. I don't think she's able to really, I don't think she has the capacity or the emotional intelligence to realize that, or to acknowledge the fact that her dad saved up for 3 years. You know, I'm sure he spelled that out, and that the trip was really important. Anyways, time for the next story. Am I the asshole for humiliating my ex's new girlfriend in front of our friend group after she tried to play the victim? Okay. Wow, this one is loaded. I, 28 female Giovanna, dated Dax, 29 male, for 5 years until I discovered he was having a year-long affair with a coworker, Cleo, 25 female. Our friend group sided with me and largely cut Dax out. Last weekend, a mutual friend hosted a large BBQ and foolishly invited Dax, who brought Cleo. I decided to take the high road and ignore them. But Cleo had a few drinks and decided to hold court in the kitchen. I walked in to grab a soda and heard her telling 3 of my friends that I was so intimidating, in quotes, so intimidating, and that it's not, quote, her fault, not her fault Dax fell out of love with me. She literally fake cried, saying I was creating a toxic environment by being at the party. I snapped. I pulled out my phone and read aloud the text messages she sent Dax a year ago, where she specifically plotted how to get me out of the apartment so they could hook up in my bed. I read them at full volume. Cleo ran out of the house sobbing, Dax yelled at me for being cruel, and half the friend group thinks I went too far. This is an insane story. The person who shares this says, am I the asshole for humiliating my ex's new girlfriend in front of our friend group after she tried to play the victim? This is a tough one where I stand. I feel like I need to sort of review this and analyze it a little bit more. First off, I think it's really horrible that this person who shares this story, Giovanna, was dating this guy Dax, which, by the way, is an idiotic name. Why would you ever date someone named Dax? Like, I don't know, it sounds like a stage name in my opinion. But it's terrible that she was dating him for 5 years, and then she discovered that he was cheating on her for a year with his coworker. So, right off the grap, wow, I cannot speak. Right off the rap here. Their friend group sided with her and they cut Dax out. So I don't really understand why they cut Dax out. What I don't understand is that they have this mutual friend, they hosted a large BBQ, and they foolishly invited Dax. So I don't understand why they would invite him. I feel like that's kind of on the friend for inviting him. That was a really dumb idea. Maybe they thought all this blew over, but generally speaking, that would probably be a really bad idea considering like the situation here. You have to pick one. And it sounds like they sided with the person Giovanna who shares this story. So just don't invite Dax and the person that he cheated with, right? That seems like a no-brainer. So it sounds like that's the main person right now who you know really did wrong. Of course Dax did wrong and Cleo, but you know, just don't invite him. But yeah, anyways, it's a tough thing. The person who shares the story says, I decide to take the high road and ignore them. Now, it's a tricky thing because they could have just chosen not to go, but why are they going to allow someone else to ruin that experience for them? You know, it's like, it's their friend group, everyone sided with her, you know, it makes sense she would go to the barbecue. Now, it's tough here because after a certain point, you'd have to really, like, have a boundary for yourself, and it sounds like Giovanna decided to take the high road and just ignore them. But then Cleo had a few drinks, which is a bad idea. It's like truth serum out here. And she decided to, I quote, hold court in the kitchen. So it sounds like Giovanna walked in to grab the soda, heard her telling 3 of Giovanna's friends that she was intimidating and it's not her fault Dax fell out of love with Giovanna, which is an insane and wild thing to say because, yeah, it is. It's Cleo and Dax's fault because Dax started to put energy outside of his relationship, which is what cheating is. That's what infidelity is. So it absolutely is her fault because she took part in that. Dax didn't just fall out of love with Giovanna, right? He just stopped putting energy into the relationship. So yeah, it is both their fault. And of course Giovanna would be intimidating because you're a homewrecker. You completely destroyed their relationship. You took part in that. Dax and Cleo both took part in that. They destroyed the relationship. And the fact that Giovanna was able to see through and see that Cleo was fake crying, claiming that Giovanna was creating a toxic environment by being at the party. What in the world? Like, everyone sided with Giovanna. So, like, she has the right to be there, not Dax and Cleo. So, it really is crazy how some of these people in these stories, it's like they're saying the description of themselves. It sounds like Cleo is the one creating the toxic environment right now. Now, again, I forget, like, what exactly that term is. Some sort of, like, mirroring thing, just, like, describing someone else, but they're really just describing themselves. Anyways, this is a tricky situation because the way that Giovanna describes how this happened, if I were in the situation, I have no idea where I would really draw the line. Like, it's possible that when she heard not her fault, Dax fell out of love with her, maybe at that point Giovanna could have spoken up in a calm way and just said, like, hey, I would really appreciate you just not having this conversation because, like, I'm starting to feel really upset by what I'm hearing, and I just think that this is not appropriate, and I ask if you could just respect everyone's privacy, and just be respectful by not talking about this. The thing is, though, in the moment, it's so much easier said than done to say something like that. So it's tough because, like anyone would, Giovanna says that she snapped, and then she just goes hog wild like the previous story. She takes her phone out and she starts reading aloud the text messages from a year ago, reading and saying aloud to all the friends where specifically Cleo was plotting how to get Giovanna out of the apartment so they could hook up in the bed, in her own bed, which is an insane thing. Like, I don't know what's wrong with you or what is going on in your head where one of your desires is to go into someone else's bed and steal someone else's partner. That is, you really have to be sick in the head if that's something that you're into and that's like an aspiration. Like, don't you have a life? Don't you have better things to do with your life? Anyways, Giovanna reads all this at full volume. Cleo runs out of the house sobbing, and Dax yelled at Giovanna for being cruel, and half the friend group thinks I went too far. I personally don't think that she went too far. I think if I were in the situation, I would have done the same exact thing. I think that, of course, Dax and Cleo are totally in the wrong here. They just didn't belong at this barbecue, this party. But Cleo absolutely was like stoking the fire here. She was totally stirring the pot, trying to cause a scene. She's very clearly a troublemaker and a very, very fake human being. So good luck to Dax and Cleo. In part because Dax's name is dumb, but also it sounds like Dax and Cleo are just two really fake, shallow people. I think that this will blow over. I think that the person who planned this barbecue will realize and learn, okay, I'm not, if we ever take a side, I'm only ever going to invite one side and pick and stay like that for the rest of any time I host a barbecue, So I hope that friend realizes it was a really bad idea because at the beginning, the person who shares the story says, quote, the person who hosted the large barbecue foolishly invited Dax. So I hope they learned their lesson. Honestly, I think the people in the wrong here are Dax, Cleo, and the person who decided to invite them. I don't think that Giovanna was in the wrong here. She was absolutely being provoked. And personally, I feel that if you're being provoked, you can only get provoked for so long until you completely lose your cool. And we're human, and it's clear that she just lost her cool. So I honestly see nothing wrong with what she did here. It's her friend group. Dax and Cleo don't belong at the barbecue anyways. So I honestly think that this was a really great way to just solve the problem forever and make them go away. Dax and Cleo destroyed a relationship. They're trying to soil the friend group too. Like, Giovanna got him out of there. So I get the feeling that now that Dax and Cleo will never be in the picture, I think that friend group will probably be a lot less problematic. So that's my opinion. Anyways, I'm kind of losing track here, but let's go on to the next story. Did I F up by wearing a sage green dress to my ex's wedding and accidentally looking exactly like a bridesmaid? I, 26 female, Kalia, was invited to my ex-boyfriend's wedding. We broke up amicably 3 years ago, and I'm friendly with his new wife, Livia. I wanted to show support and prove there was no bad blood. I bought a really nice, elegant sage green slip dress for the event. Well, I arrived at the venue, walked in the reception hall, and my heart stopped. There were 6 bridesmaids, all wearing the same exact shade of sage green in a similar slip dresses. I completely blended in. Livia's mother grabbed my arm, assumed I was in the bridal party, and dragged me to the front for photos. I was too awkward and panicked to correct her in front of the photographer, so there I am standing right next to my ex-boyfriend in his official wedding photos, looking like I desperately tried to insert myself into his bridal party. Livia saw the dress later and gave me a look that could curdle milk. She has not spoken to me since, and I am the running joke in our entire friend group. Ooh, wow, this one is really rough. Now listen, I'm not saying that the person who shared the story, Kalia, is in the wrong here. But I do think they learned a very tough and important lesson. And that is, if you're going to a wedding and you are just a guest, it's super important to always ask, what are the groomsmen and the bridesmaids and the maid of honor, what are they wearing? This is super, super important. Because you want to wear something that, of course, isn't a white wedding dress, but also there's always the chance that you could wear the same color as the bridesmaids, just like Kaylee described. So while I don't think she's in the wrong, clearly everyone knows her intentions. Well, that's not exactly true. I think everyone has assumed that she purposefully wore the same color so that she could get into the official wedding photos with her ex-boyfriend. So no one actually does know her intentions. So this is a tricky thing. We know Kaylee's intentions, that like it was just purely an accident. And she unfortunately learned a tough lesson that you have to ask before you buy your dress or your suit or whatever, you know? So you never know. I mean, like you could wear a red tie and then find out, oh my God, the groomsmen are wearing a red tie. And then oh God, I'm matching with them. That was a huge accident. It's super important. I mean, honestly, like, I think that this person, Kalia, handled this to the best of their ability. She literally said that no, wait a second. I don't know if I'm misunderstanding here. She said, I completely blended in. So I don't know if she meant she blended into the wedding party or she tried blending into the crowd. So that's a little ambiguous here. One thing, this is just my opinion. This is purely my opinion. Look, I think if people can, be friends with an ex, like, be my guest. But personally, that's kind of weird in my opinion. Like, I'm judging a little bit here. I personally just wouldn't do that. Yeah, I just probably wouldn't do that. And especially, like, I don't know. I wouldn't even be friends with someone else's, like, ex. Like, if I was dating someone and then like we were all friends, like I just honestly think that's kind of weird. So that's just my opinion that I want to slip in there. But I guess, like if this Kalia person, they said they want to show support and prove there was no bad blood, I guess that's nice. But personally, I would just let them be and just, like, I think there's a reason why people learn harsh lessons, that usually it's pretty tough to just be friends after you've had some sort of history. I think 99% of the time, people are always proven wrong when they try and make that work out. If anything, I would just be really insecure and uncomfortable about that. But anyways, though, yeah, it's super awkward. And the secondhand embarrassment about all this is really tough. There were 6 bridesmaids all wearing the same exact color, the shade of sage green. And it's crazy because the bride's mom grabbed Kalia's arm, assumed she was in the bridal party, which I don't understand. I guess she just wouldn't have known. Yikes. But it's crazy though, because the person who shares the story says they were too awkward and too panicked to correct the mom in front of the photographer. So they must have been standing there like, So they say, there I am standing right next to my ex-boyfriend in his official wedding photos, looking like I desperately tried to insert myself into his bridal party. Can't speak again. And the bride saw the dress and gave a look that could curdle milk. She hasn't spoken to her, and now it's the entire running joke in the entire friend group. So wow, unfortunately, I do feel like the person who shares this story, Kalia, is kind of in the wrong here. It was an honest mistake at first, but for her to be too awkward and panicked to just be like, hey, no, absolutely not. I'm not in the wedding photo. Like, I'm not in the wedding party. Like, please don't take photos of me. This was a mistake. I really don't think it takes that much energy to say that. So I unfortunately do think that, like, she's in the wrong here. I know what her intentions were, and I don't think she was going out of her way to sabotage anything, but I think that if you're 26 and you're too awkward and panicked to speak up in a moment like this, you should probably work on your social skills. I know that's very, very embarrassing, but in front of everyone to just be like, hey, no, I'm not in the bridal party. This was an honest mistake. I didn't ask what color you guys are wearing. I'm really sorry about this. Please forgive me. And, you know, like, please just enjoy your photos. I just don't really think it takes that much courage and confidence to speak up and say something like that. So that's my opinion on all of this. It looks really, really bad. And there's really not much that Kalia can do about it, you know? So hard lesson learned here. And I hope you listening, I hope you take notes. All right, I'm kind of losing count. I think we're on story 5 now. Here we go. Am I the asshole for leaving my wife at home on Thanksgiving after she demanded my family cater entirely to her new fruitarian diet? Oh, the story. Here we go. My wife, Cressida, 30 female, constantly jumps on extreme diet trends. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, she announced she is now a strict fruitarian. She will only eat raw fruits and seeds. We go to my parents' house for Thanksgiving every year, and my mom cooks a traditional feast for 15 people. Cressida emailed my mother a 4-page document outlining how the entire Thanksgiving meal needs to be restructured so she wouldn't feel left out. She demanded my mom not cook any meat in the house because the smell would offend her, and requested 7 different complex, exotic fruit platters. My mom called me in tears. I sat Cressida down and told her that my mom is not running a specialty raw vegan restaurant. I said she could bring her own fruit and she could stay home. Cressida accused me of not supporting her spiritual journey and said if I went without her, it meant I chose my mom over my wife. So I packed the car, I went to my parents' house, and had a great turkey dinner. She hasn't spoken to me in 3 days. This one is pretty goofy. Right off the bat, it is pretty clear. Cressida sounds like the name of a Pokemon. I'm pretty sure that's a Pokemon from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. Cresselia or something. That sounds like a Pokemon's name. I don't know. Some of the people in these stories, like, some have cool names and some have names that just sound goofy. Anyways, I think if this guy who shares the story, if his wife is constantly jumping on extreme diet trends, like, I would maybe go see a couples counselor, or, like, you know, maybe just look into that. That sounds very problematic. And the reason why I say it sounds problematic is because it sounds like his wife Cressida is demanding, not asking, but demanding that everyone else flex to her desires and needs. And that's completely unrealistic. It sounds like Cressida just, like, went full out, wasn't able to compromise on any of this. And you can tell by the wording, like, how this guy shares what happened to him, that his wife announced that she's now a strict fruitarian, which, I'm sorry, I think that's a made-up word. I don't even think that's a real word. So, and is it even healthy to eat only raw fruits and seeds? Like, she's probably going to get some sort of, like, sickness, like some sort of anemia sickness or something, like not getting the proper, like, nutrition to her body. This sounds terrible. So, like, it sounds like they need to go to a marriage counselor, because, like, this does not sound good for their marriage. It just sounds like it's causing a lot of stress on them. And the fact that she knows that they go to Thanksgiving every year to the person who shares the story, to his house, to his parents, and his mom cooks a fantastic feast for 15 people. That sounds like a really nice time. Now, the fact that his wife Cressida emailed his mom a 4-page document outlining how the entire Thanksgiving meal needs to be restructured so she wouldn't feel left out, that's insane. Now, like, a reasonable person would maybe sit down and be like, hey, you know, I'm on this new diet and it's really important to me. And, you know, like, I'm just wondering, can I bring, like, a variety of fruits and seeds to the Thanksgiving dinner? And, you know, other people, if they want to eat it, they can, but it's mostly just for me. Are you comfortable with that? And maybe his mom would have been like, oh yeah, sure, like, hey, how about this? Can I add this to it? Like, that's a compromise, because that's a respectful way of just asking someone if they would consider you. But what his wife Cressida is doing is insane. She's making demands here, and she's asking everyone to go her way. And not to just sit down and communicate in person, but to email his mom and not even talk to her in person, a 4-page document. Like, that's crazy. Like, you must have the worst social skills ever. Like, you have bigger fish to fry than your fruitarian diet if the way you communicate with people is emailing them and not speaking to them. Like, emails are the kind of thing you do when you need to follow up or quick reach out to someone, you know, or you make a phone call or something. That's crazy. So, anyways, it's just the fact that she wants everyone's Thanksgiving meal to be different just to accommodate for her is super, super entitled and selfish. That's really selfish. And the fact that Cressida demanded that his mom not cook any meat in the house because the smell would offend her, and requested all these crazy complex fruit platters. Like, that sounds really, really demanding. And this person, Cressida, sounds very, very selfish. This sounds like probably a very difficult person to get along with. And I think it's completely valid that this guy's mom called him in tears. Like, I would be in tears too, especially, you know what I would be? If I was a parent and I had a daughter-in-law who called me like this or sent me this crazy email, I would just feel sad for my son. And I would be like, oh my God, like, you kind of made a mistake here. Like, your marriage needs some help because the person you married, like, this just makes me sad. You deserve better, you know? So I imagine maybe that's why his mom called him in tears. But anyways, yeah, so he sat down with his wife and he just said, no, you know, bring your own fruit or just stay home, which I think is totally reasonable. The guy who shares his story is totally in the right here. That is the way to handle it. And good on him for holding his ground. But then his wife doubles down and she accuses him of not supporting her spiritual journey, which, what the hell? What does that even mean, her spiritual journey? We're talking about fruit, man. This is not, there's nothing spiritual about this. You're just choosing to eat fruit. Like, and why would you get offended by meat? Like, what in the world? It sounds like she joined a cult. I would dig deep and figure out where this fruitarian diet came from. There is nothing spiritual about fruit. I'm just putting that out there. Anyways, she said that if he went without her, it meant that he chose, sorry, this is a tongue twister. She sells seashells. It's a tongue twister. But it meant that he chose his mom over his wife. Which is like, kind of, that's an ultimatum. Like, his wife is literally putting an ultimatum on him. So I think that's a really unreasonable and selfish thing to do to your spouse. But it sounds like this guy is totally doing a great job. He packed the car, went to his parents' house, and had a great Thanksgiving dinner, as he should. And she hasn't spoken to him in 3 days. So this is crazy here, because in my opinion, it sounds like his wife is extremely immature. So while this is a really big dilemma and a pretty bad situation, honestly, I would encourage the guy who shared this story to go to marriage counseling, because it sounds like his wife is kind of horrible. It sounds like they need to go to marriage counseling, and it sounds like his wife needs to go to counseling, like therapy, and iron all this stuff out. Because it sounds like maybe, I'm just doing a little Freudian psychoanalysis here, but it sounds like maybe the reason why she's constantly jumping on these extreme diet trends is probably for attention, because she has some sort of unresolved childhood wounds. That really just sounds like it's it. And it sounds like she needs to just go to therapy and take care of herself. That's pretty much it. So, yeah, that is actually insane. Like, it sounds like he's not really taking it too seriously, and maybe that's just the status quo in their relationship. Maybe he just, in order to survive in their relationship, maybe everything else is fine and she's just a little kooky. But, like, if I were him, I would start going to marriage counseling, man. Yeah, and all this is just insanity. Yeah, anyways, that's about it about that. Jeez. All right, we are now on story 6. We've been going for 44 minutes now. I haven't taken a single sip of water. I am going full stop. I'm not taking any breaks here. Here we go. Story number 6. I got revenge on the cab driver who ripped me to shreds in a different language, thinking I couldn't understand him. I, 28 female Cassia, am a corporate consultant. I look very stereotypically American, but my mother is Greek and I speak it fluently. Last week I was in Chicago taking a cab to a massive pitch meeting. The cab driver was on the phone. I can't speak. The cab driver was on the phone, speaking Greek on speakerphone. He started complaining to his friend about me. He called me an entitled corporate pig, made disgusting comments about my skirt, and said he was going to take the longest route possible to run up the meter on the stupid American. I sat quietly in the back for 40 minutes as he drove in literal circles. When we finally got to my building, the meter was $85. I handed him exactly $25 in cash, looked him dead in the eye, and said in perfect, fluent Greek, "This is what the direct route costs. You can take the rest up with your dispatcher. Also, my skirt looks fantastic, you creep." The blood drained from his face so fast, he looked like a ghost. He tried to stutter out an apology, but I just slammed the door and walked into my meeting. Okay, I just want to make a comment here about all these stories that I read sometimes. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but each episode, when I make these longer 1-hour videos, they usually have a theme. And I'm not sure if you'd noticed here, but the theme usually, for at least this 1 hour long episode, is that the people who are wondering, like, oh, am I in the wrong, No, they're not. Like, these people, they're doing great in life. They have the confidence and the courage to stand up against what they know is wrong. And this person, 28 female Cassia, who shares the story, like, she's absolutely in the right. And she has some serious pair of steel balls here. That takes a lot of courage to stand up to someone who's been trash talking you for 40 minutes and to basically say to them in the same language that they've been speaking, like, thinking they're getting away with trash talking this person. But to say to them, like, hey, you're charging me 85, I'm only giving you 25, to stand their ground and basically saying, like, yeah, like, screw you. And also to call them a creep because they were creepily, like, looking at the person's skirt. That takes so much courage and confidence to do. So, like, round of applause for this person, Cassia. It's crazy because the previous story that I just read about, no, 2 previous stories ago, the person who was at the wedding and they wore, they unfortunately and by mistake wore the same color dress as the bridesmaids, and then they didn't have the courage to speak up and be like, no, wait, don't put me in the photos. Like, no, I'm not, this is just a mistake. I shouldn't be in the photos. Please let me leave. That person had no courage at all. They had no, like, social, like, confidence. But this person in the story, Cassia, they're a corporate consultant. It sounds like they're killing it in life. And it's great that they're they know 2 languages. I imagine that comes in handy. And it's also probably just nice, right? But it's crazy, though, how the cab driver, he's speaking Greek on speakerphone. And he just randomly decides to start complaining to his friend on the phone about the passenger. Which, by the way, this person who shares the story, Cassia, she's just minding her own business. Like, she's literally not doing anything wrong. Like, she's doing nothing wrong. I don't know if maybe they shared a conversation. I don't know how that, I don't know how the cab driver would know that she's in corporate. But he calls her in Greek an entitled corporate pig, which is like a really mean and heinous thing to say about someone, especially right in front of them in a different language. Like, you have to be kind of like a lowlife if that's the kind of stuff that takes up your time. Like, literally trash talking someone in another language. You've got problems if that's the kind of thing you're comfortable doing. Because really, at the end of the day, it's about, like, what's going on in your heart. You know what I mean? Like, what is really going on with your morals and ethics if you're comfortable and you feel there's nothing wrong? Like, you've accepted, like, oh yeah, I've made peace with the fact that I trash talk people right in front of them in another language. Like, there's definitely something wrong with you there. Like, no morals, like, maybe you don't have any empathy for other people. So it's sad. It's really mean. It's not a nice thing to do. And then to double down and to make disgusting comments, probably sexual in nature, about her skirt, which is so inappropriate. Like, at that point, if it was in English and everyone understood each other, like, that's sexual harassment at that point. And then, crazy, tripling down, the cab driver is saying that he was going to take the longest route possible to run up the meter, and he called her a stupid American. That's a really terrible, terrible thing to do. And also, like, it's just a waste of the cab driver's time. But, I mean, I guess he thought that he was going to get paid for it. But, like, I guess think twice, like, take this as your lesson. Like, think twice before you talk openly, like trash talk someone openly in another language thinking that they can't understand you. Oftentimes I do wonder, like, how often this does happen where people are just like trash talking someone else in public right in front of them in another language. I think it does happen often, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't know what his deal is against Americans. Like, because he's literally working as a taxi cab driver in America, and he's probably making pretty solid money doing it in America, but he thinks that America is stupid, and he's calling the person stupid American. I don't know if maybe there's some jealousy at play here. Like, he notices that she, maybe he picked her up at some sort of corporate building, and maybe he's just jealous that, like, oh, this woman is making more money than me. Oh, stupid American. I don't know. This person's making more money than me. Oh, stupid American. I don't know. But yeah, like, for her to look him dead in the eye, pay $25 instead of the $85 he charged her, and then basically call him a creep and address everything. Like, I think that it takes huge balls. So that's amazing. And as well, based on some of the other stories that we heard here in this episode, a lot of people in some of these stories lose their cool. But I think the fact that she was respectfully able to address everything, I don't think saying you creep is out of line at all. The fact that she was able to stay calm, I just realized that. Staying calm. She said she sat quietly in the back for 40 minutes. That takes a lot of self-restraint and I think a lot of maturity. So in this episode, we're seeing a lot of variation in maturity levels and like emotional capacity. But for this person to stay calm, I don't think people realize how difficult that is. So like this person who shares the story, Cassia, they sound very mature for 28. So anyways, amazing work. Really, really great work. I don't think she's in the wrong here at all. That taxi cab driver, I really hope that her standing up for himself. Sorry, I can't speak. I hope that her standing up for herself hopefully will be impactful on this taxi cab driver, and hopefully he'll think twice and he'll actually just try to be a better person. Because I think what he was doing, it goes to show that he just probably is not a good person at all. All right. Well, anyways, I think we're on story 7 now. We are getting deep into these stories here. Are you ready? Here we go. Am I the asshole for cussing out my son's teacher after she confiscated his medical device because of a strict no screens policy? What? My son Orion, 9 male, has type 1 diabetes. He wears a continuous glucose monitor, CGM, that sends alerts to a smartwatch he wears, which also alerts my phone if his blood sugar drops dangerously low. His school, the principal, and his previous teachers are all fully aware of this, and we have a medical plan on file. This year's new teacher, Miss Vada, instituted a militant no screens, no tech policy in her classroom. On the second day of school, Orion's watch beeped for a low blood sugar warning. Miss Vada walked over, unbuckled the watch from his wrist, and locked it in her desk, telling him he was faking a beep to play games. Orion tried to explain, but she sent him to the hall. By the time I got the secondary alert on my phone, his sugar had tanked. I rushed to the school, gave him juice, and confronted Miss Vada. She smirked and told me, rules are rules, I don't make exceptions for helicopter parents. I lost it. I cussed her out in front of the entire front office. I think I said that word twice. I cussed her out in front of the entire front office. The way this person shared the story was redundant, calling her a danger to children. Now the school wants me to apologize to her for creating a hostile work environment. I refused. Another crazy and wacky story here. I don't think that the son or the mom is in the wrong here at all. Like, are we serious here? Type 1 diabetes is very, very serious. It's super important to monitor it because, like, it could literally be fatal if you are not maintaining blood sugar. And the fact that the entire school, like, I don't understand. The entire school is fully aware and they have a medical plan on file. So, like, the school, that's the thing, is the school in the wrong or is the teacher? Because did the school not properly notify the new teacher about this medical plan, right? Or it sounds to me, this teacher, Miss Vada, she smirked at the mom. When the mom confronted the teacher smirked. And she makes a jab saying, I don't make exceptions for helicopter parents. So I'm beginning to think that this new teacher, I think she knew about the medical plan And don't ask me why. Like, if anything fatal happened or dangerous or like, anything, that harmed this boy and his physical health, that teacher could probably go to jail for negligence, especially if there's proof that she was made aware of the medical plan on file for the school. Anyways, this teacher just sounds completely out of hand. And I don't think the mom is in the wrong. The mom, again, this is a theme we're sort of seeing in this episode. A lot of these people share these stories, they just lose it, and rightfully so. To be called a helicopter parent when, like, you're not a helicopter parent, you're getting this mom got a notification that her son's blood sugar level was dangerously low. That's not a helicopter parent. That's the bare minimum here. Like, she's literally being a parent. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's not a helicopter parent by any means. So I think it's totally valid for her to lose it. So she cussed out the teacher in front of the entire office. And yeah, I think it was rightfully so to call her a danger to children. And it's insane. It's actually insane how the school wants the mom to apologize to the teacher for creating a hostile work environment. Number one, the parents do not create the work environment. They don't. The teachers and the staff do. So I think for the mom to refuse. I think that teacher had it coming. And I think that after cussing the teacher out, I think that this mistake is never going to happen again. I think that the mom totally put the new teacher in her place. And I guess I'll sort of yap about this. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that, like, if you could take anything from this episode, it's that when someone does something and you know that they're in the wrong, it's super important that you just speak your opinion. And you know what? If this went a different way and maybe there was a misunderstanding or it was a mistake, I'm sure that the person who shares this story, the mom, would probably take accountability and say, all right, I overreacted. I'm really sorry. Right. But she didn't. Like, maybe at a later date, maybe if the new teacher, Miss Vada, is on the straight and narrow and respects the medical plan and, tries to make amends, maybe one day the mom will say to her, hey, I'm sorry for cussing you out. I shouldn't have done that. But I certainly have been in many situations where I completely lost it and overreacted. And like, it's just the people who are provoking this sort of situation have it coming. And the people who overreact, anyone in that situation would overreact. It's completely valid. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that the mom isn't like taking legal action. I would feel very unsafe if I had a child with type 1 diabetes and it could be potentially harmful or fatal if their blood sugar is not monitored correctly. If this happened, I wouldn't feel safe with my child, being taught by that teacher. And I would demand, like, hey, like, I want a different teacher because I don't trust this teacher now because they're smirking at me. They totally know what they're doing here. So anyways, yeah, I have a few more stories here, but I've been going for an hour. Anyways, I will ask that if you've listened to the end here, if you could just please comment, subscribe, share this channel. I'm putting a lot of effort into this channel, and I hope you're enjoying it. I certainly am enjoying it as well. I can yap a lot. I'm having a good time here. So I hope that we can get the channel going. I'm really, really excited about this. I don't even have 1,000 subscribers at this point, so I'll just sort of leave this in here as a little milestone. But anyways, I really like making these videos, so I hope you're enjoying them. That's pretty much it. Make sure to subscribe, enjoy your day, and don't show up to a wedding in the same color as the wedding party. My husband told me he was a spy on secret missions. I just found his secret Instagram, and he's a professional clingy baby. What in the world is a clingy baby? These stories are insane. Here it goes. I, 29 female, have been married to David, 31 male, for 4 years. David always had a mysterious job, telling me he works for a government agency and frequently has to go on dark ops missions. He'd disappear for days at a time, leaving me terrified until he returned with vague tales of near-death experiences. I never questioned him because I thought I was protecting national security. Well, last week I was doing some late-night scrolling on Instagram and a picture caught my eye. It was from an account called Mr. Clingy Baby Boy for You. In the picture, a man who looked exactly like my husband was wearing an oversized bonnet, a custom adult diaper, and was sucking on a giant pacifier. The caption read, "Special thank you to my new mama for the early bedtime. I felt my stomach drop. After some digging, I confirmed it was his private account, and the pictures were taken in hotels where he was supposed to be on... I can't read. He was supposed to be on missions. He's a well-known figure in the clingy adult baby community, and clients pay him to fly out and be, well, babies for them. I don't know what to do. All right, I'm sorry. Hang on a second here. Is clingy adult baby community... Like, am I getting bamboozled, or is that an actually real community? Because if so, that's insane. I mean, look, I know that, like, furries, that's a real community, but I have never heard of this. There's so much to unpack here. On the surface level, let's just acknowledge the fact. Let's just acknowledge the fact that, like, let's not even get to the weird community that this person's husband is supposedly belonging to. Let's just tackle this head on with the fact that, like, their husband absolutely has been lying to them, saying that he works for a government agency and he goes on dark ops missions. And like, that's just a lie. And as well, it's, like, so unfair that this person was leaving the writer terrified. And then he would just double down, triple down on all this and lie and make up these vague stories of near-death experiences. Yeah, it's so deceptive. That's absolutely crazy. And then just digging deeper into this, like, what in the world? Is this actually a real community? Or, like, are people sending these in to prank me? I don't know, but I'll say this. If someone wants to go out there and do some research on the clingy adult baby community, maybe it is real. But yeah, a man who looked exactly like their husband was wearing an oversized bonnet. Like, this is crazy. Excuse me, it was in fact his private account, and instead of going on these missions, he would just go to hotels, and he's apparently a well-known figure in the community, and the clients pay him to fly out and act as a baby. So, like, that is his job. He's a professional baby. Just on the surface level, the person asked, I don't know what to do. Yeah, I mean, look, let's just say on the surface level, you were to meet this person. You go on a date and you say, what do you do for work? And they say, well, I'm a professional clingy adult baby, which is insane. Like, would you accept them? I wouldn't. So there's that. I would just be like, yeah, I'm all set. Like, I think this is maybe not the right fit for me. But no judgment. If someone wants to do that, I guess that's fine. But, like, be honest about it. That's the second level of this, is that, like, this person's husband has been lying basically about their entire life. So yeah, that's crazy. You can't make this stuff up. I don't really know how much more I can really yap about this. I just, like, I guess after I'm done recording this episode, I'm gonna look into if this is a real community, because that just seems crazy. Okay. Am I the asshole for dropping the truth bomb about my sister's miracle pregnancy at her baby shower by revealing I just got a vasectomy with her husband? That is a loaded title. Let's jump into it. I, 32 male, am married to my wife Sarah, 30 female. My sister Chloe, 28 female, and her husband Mark, 33 male. That's a lot of people in the story, but okay. Have struggled with infertility for 5 years. Chloe calls it her heartache and has been very public about their struggles. So that's the other person, their sister. 3 months ago, Chloe announced she had conceived naturally, calling it a miracle baby. The whole family was thrilled. Now here's the problem. Mark, Sarah, and I are very close, and 4 months ago, Mark came to me for advice. He said he was done trying, the treatments were too expensive, and he secretly got a vasectomy. Mark begged me to go with him for support, so I did, and I actually got one the same week, so we recovered together. And yes, wow, okay. I kept a secret, and he kept mine. Fast forward to the baby shower yesterday. Chloe was bragging about the conception, saying it happened the exact week Mark and I got our procedures. She made a specific joke about men always claiming they're the ones with the power. I looked at Mark and he looked horrified. Everyone was looking at me, expecting me to laugh. I just couldn't take it. I stood up and said, actually, Chloe, the power must be from the other guy you slept with, because Mark got a vasectomy the exact same week. In fact, we were covered on the same couch. The room went dead silent. Chloe screamed and threw cake at me. Mark has moved out, and I am the bad guy. There's a lot to unpack here. Wow. I mean, like, the person asked in the title, am I the asshole? But there's a lot of deception going back and forth here in this story, because, like, struggles about fertility, that's very, very difficult, right? But the crazy thing is that these two guys, they're both married and they're friends. They're all friends. I don't really morally agree with that. If you're in a marriage, you can't just secretly get a vasectomy. Like, if this guy Mark came to the writer for advice and said he was done trying, I get it. The treatment was too expensive and it's stressful and it's a roller coaster, but like, that's not something that he should be talking about with his guy friend. He should be talking about his spouse with that. Like, that's a huge thing. If someone's in like a long-term marriage or just marriage in general, like, it should be between the two partners, whether like, okay, like, it's two people in a team here. Like, someone getting a vasectomy that should be a conversation between the two partners in the relationship. So like, that's absolutely wild. So I don't understand why these two guys would keep that a secret, because that should be a discussion between them, like them and their spouses, you know? Like, that's actually kind of a crazy thing, because it's like, I don't understand. The only reason for them to be secretive about it and like have it between these two guys is if they were the ones trying. But it's like, why would they not confide in their spouses about something that big? But then on the same token, it seems like the other party's super guilty, because that's crazy. Like, I don't understand. We can only assume with the details that we have. This person in this story, Chloe, like, okay, she has a miracle baby, but like, what ended up happening? Did she just decide, oh, my husband, isn't getting me pregnant, so I'm just gonna try someone else? Like, I don't think it works that way. That's actually pretty horrible. So it sounds like the inevitable happened, though, because it sounds like everyone has just been deceiving each other and not being very honest. I don't think outing the truth like that in public in such a big way was the right move. Yeah, I just think everyone here is in the wrong. And then another thing to think about is like, dear God, like, the future of this child, that's kind of horrible, so this situation is really, really horrible, but it sounds like it was just a ticking time bomb in the first place. That's terrible. All right, here's the next one. My eccentric neighbor built a full-size replica of my bedroom in his basement, and I accidentally watched his live stream. What? I, 24 female, live in a townhouse and have always tried to be polite to my neighbor, Gerald, 55 male, who I thought was just eccentric. He's retired, lives alone, and always has packages delivered. Well, 2 nights ago, I was looking for a specific item on a local buying-selling app, and a weird live stream showed up in the live section. The room in the feed looked exactly like my bedroom, and I mean identical. The same rug, the same bedding, the same frame photos on the wall. At first, I thought someone had set up a camera in my room. Then I saw Gerald walking into the frame. He sat on the bed and spent 30 minutes talking to his viewers about his artistic muse. In parentheses, me. He has built a perfect one-to-one replica of my bedroom in his basement, based on the things he's seen in my windows. Ooh. He even has a mannequin on the bed dressed in clothes identical to my favorites. He was taking donation requests to act out scenarios. I'm currently at a friend's house, too scared to go home. The police said he hasn't technically broken into my house, so they can't do much. Or home. Am I the asshole for getting a lawyer and trying to sue him for emotional distress and harassment? Wow. I don't even know what to address with this. These stories are actually insane. Like, yeah, their neighbor clearly is weird, right? He's retired, he lives alone, he's always having packages delivered. And yeah, it is kind of interesting how, I don't know if you've heard of this, but these buying selling apps now have like live streams. So whether that's, I don't know what some of the big ones are, but I just saw an ad about it on eBay, which is like really creepy. So like the thing here that I'm wondering about is like, he's always getting packages delivered. So maybe this neighbor's like buying and selling things. What he's buying and selling, I really wonder what he's buying and selling, given that he made a replica of his neighbor's room. That is like really, really weird. Especially like the bedroom. And it's like, how in the world did he make it look exactly like the bedroom just based on like looking through the windows? Yeah, that's so weird, because what the writer of the story, like who sent it in, I have the same concern. Like, how did he do that? Did he set up a camera in the room? Has he been in there personally? Yeah, and it's so weird too. It's creepy and it's like stalker like I don't understand if this person can get like video evidence of him specifically saying her name, just like 30 minutes talking about her, and maybe that can be framed as like some sort of like stalking or obsession. I don't know. Personally, I would move. I would just move. But yeah, a 1-to-1 replica of my bedroom in his basement based on the things he's seen in my windows. And the mannequin is like really weird and creepy. And then also taking donation requests to act out scenarios. Like, what are the scenarios? I don't have the live stream in front of me, but like, what kind of scenarios are we talking about? Like dancing with the mannequin, or like, that's weird. So I don't understand. Are live streams really big on buying selling apps? Like, is that like, is that like a weird, like freaky, like live stream app that people go to now for weird shit? I don't know. Yeah, I would be too scared to go home too. But do I think they're the asshole for getting a lawyer and trying to sue him for emotional distress and harassment? No, I think there's plenty of evidence there, but I do think probably the best scenario here is probably to just like move out. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't, like, in the eyes of the law, I'm not really sure what the crime is. I feel like a restraining order could definitely be put together, but I would just, like, get a restraining order and I would just move. But no, I don't think they're in the wrong here. All right, the next story sent in. I accidentally fired my boss when I showed HR the hidden folder of my stolen ideas and his 100% plagiarized master's thesis. What? That is crazy. Here we go. I, 27 male, have a toxic micromanaging boss, Pam, 45 female. For 2 years, Pam has taken credit for all of my work, stolen my ideas in meetings, and told everyone I'm a work in progress. That's rude. I finally had enough. I created a hidden folder on our shared drive called Pam's Legacy and filled it with screenshots, emails, and side-by-side comparisons of my original concepts and her proposals to upper management. It was thousands of files. My intention was to show it to HR when I finally quit. But last week, during a routine server update, the hidden folder became visible to everyone. A senior director found it. The director called me and HR into a meeting. While HR was looking through my theft folder, they found a file I'd saved years ago, Pam's completed master thesis. I don't know why I had it, but HR got curious. It turns out Pam's master thesis was 100% plagiarized from a paper written in the 90s. Pam was suspended immediately and is now being terminated and investigated by her university. I got promoted to her position. Am I the asshole? Oh, wow. This is such a roller coaster of a story. And like, I believe it because people do this all the time. I know so many people, like all the way at the top. Like, I think of someone like Hideo Kojima, who like literally built the entire Metal Gear Solid series and other series with Konami. And then they just completely like shut him out, you know, and like, people will dedicate their entire lives to a company only for the company to just like poop all over them. So like I believe I've seen it too, even on the smaller level. I have seen, excuse me, I've seen managers feel threatened by like their you know, the people they manage, and then they find some sort of goofy excuse to just kick the person they're managing out because they don't want their job taken over. So what's crazy though is that this happened anyways, and it was by some very strange stroke of luck. But like, what's crazy though, are they the asshole? No. But what's crazy though, is that like for 2 years, their boss took all their credit for their work, stole all their ideas, and just talked poorly about them to everyone. And it's like, it's really difficult. I think when you have a boss who's super toxic, it's really, really difficult because it's like, if they have the leverage and people trust them, oftentimes what ends up happening in like workplace environments, especially corporate, is that like people just won't listen to you, and they'll just, unfortunately, like they'll just kind of brush off what you're saying, and they'll just say, oh, that's just the way they are. But the fact that this person said, I finally had enough, I created a hidden folder, and then very, very smart for them to have a paper trail. If you ever work in corporate or you work in a job, paper trails are super important. Even myself, I just found myself in a really strange situation with work. And I had a paper trail, so I feel very protected. So paper trails are super, super important, especially in the age of technology. But yeah, they had everything, side-by-side comparisons of original concepts and her proposals. What's wild, I'm just going to slip this in here, but I watched a movie by Sam Raimi called Send Help. You know, it was campy. You know, it was a Sam Raimi film, but it's kind of like about this plot. You know, a boss who just like completely is taking advantage of like the hardest worker in the room. So, and I have more to yap about on that note, but I'll just sort of continue yapping about this scenario and then I'll talk more about that concept. But yeah, it's crazy that their intention was to show it to HR when they finally quit. But then the stroke of luck with the routine server update, it became visible, everyone found it, and like it's wild how like it's crazy. The truth always comes out. It always does. And I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing the person who sent in this story, I think it's great that they got their boss. And yeah, it's just goes to show like I don't know if I necessarily believe in like what goes around comes around. I'm not sure about that one, but what I do believe is I think that the truth always comes out. So in some way or another, so yeah, I think this is huge. And I think that, the boss Pam just kind of got what they had going for him, that is one thing that I do believe in is I think that like, if someone is going about life in a pretty slimy way, I think eventually like the slime is just going to come right back, so maybe I'm just contradicting myself at this point, but one thing I do want to share about all this is that like, if you're listening, and you have a job or you work in corporate or whatever your situation is for money, just try to think about the fact that working hard is just not always the solution. Like working hard is a very important component, but I think working smart is a lot more important, and also realizing that life really is just about like productive assets and leverage, so I just don't like seeing anyone in these situations, but I am happy that this person who sent in the story, they got a major win here. So I could make separate videos just about like life advice, but yeah, for now I just put my tidbits in after I listen to the stories. So yeah, here's the next one. My day ordered 400,000. What am I saying? My day ordered $400 worth of appetizers and then died, in quotes, died of food poisoning in the bathroom, only to post a story from the hospital asking me to pay the bill. What in the world? I, 26 female, went on a Tinder date with Mark, 28 male. We met at a nice but expensive tapas restaurant. Within 10 minutes, Mark ordered 10 different $40 appetizers, bragging about his refined palate. I ordered one $12 salad and a water. When the appetizers came, he barely ate any of them. He then claimed he was starting to feel food poisoning. He ran to the bathroom and I didn't see him for 45 minutes. A waiter came up and told me that the other guest had collapsed in the bathroom and was taken out the back by paramedics. What in the world? I was horrified and tried to go with him, but they told me I had to settle the $450 bill first. I felt pressured and paid and assumed he was, dying. 2 hours later, Mark posted an Instagram story from a hospital bed. He has a perfect angle on his face, dramatic filter, and is holding up his wrist with a hospital bracelet, reading, "Fighting for my life after a tragic tapas incident." That's crazy. If you want to support my recovery, my Venmo is ... He had Venmo'd me a request for $225 for his half of the appetizers, saying that even though he didn't eat them, I should support him since I was the one who ordered him food poisoning. What? I blocked him, but now I'm seeing his friends on TikTok calling me a tapas killer. Am I the asshole for not paying his Venmo request? I'm so confused. I'm very, very confused here. This is an absolutely wild story. So, like, this guy definitely did get food poisoning. Like, he definitely did get food poisoning, and he's in the hospital. And if you've ever gotten serious food poisoning, like, sometimes you might need to go to the hospital. It is wild, wild stuff. So like that all seems genuine here, but the thing that I'm not really understanding here is like this guy sounds kind of like superficial. He's in the hospital, he's got the perfect angle on his face, he's got the dramatic filter, and then he's taking the perfect photo of his hospital bracelet. And it's so goofy, fighting for my life after a tragic tapas incident. So I think asking people to Venmo you, that's crazy. That's crazy work. I mean, I don't know. I guess if the bill, like, let's say he didn't have insurance and the bill was like 10 grand and he started like a GoFundMe, I would get that. But I don't understand, for him to request her $225 for his half of the appetizers is really odd because she already paid for the entire bill. And he was the one who ordered all of them. He ordered 10 $40 appetizers. and then bragged about it. And she ordered one $12 salad and a water. So I don't I don't really get it here. She paid for everything and he wanted the food. Like, I think it would be one thing for this guy to go to her after the hospital and be like, "Oh my God, I have this insane bill and like I'm just so upset about it." But like, he was the one who ordered the tapas. I don't really even understand. Like, she ordered a salad and a water, so like all responsibility and accountability is completely on him. For him to request $225 after not only ordering the $10-$40 appetizers, eating some of them, and then getting the food poisoning, and then she pays for the entire bill, and then to ask for the $225 after is unhinged. That is absolutely crazy. And he said that she should support him because she was the one who ordered him food poisoning, which is crazy work because she didn't want those appetizers. And it doesn't even sound like she wanted to go to this expensive tapas restaurant. I think that blocking him was the right move. Legally, there's no obligation here to be paying him $225. She even like, she didn't, I don't even think she had to pay for the full bill. Like, that's actually crazy. She could have literally just made up some story like, "Oh yeah, he's crazy. Like, I don't know why he ordered this much. All I ordered was a salad. Like, I need to go to the hospital and make sure the guy didn't die." Like, I think it was generous of her to even pay the $450 bill. But yeah, and then for people online to be calling her a tapas killer, that's crazy. You know, so the big question mark here is, did he fake the food poisoning? Like, was what was really happening here, was he trying to get a free $400 meal and he's just a scam artist? Like, I think that may be the case here. I don't even understand. Like, did he have real food poisoning, or did he fake like an episode? Yeah, but I do think like blocking him on everything is the right move, and I don't really know what else to do here. Like, what is the dating scene nowadays? That is actually crazy work. My fiance faked winning the lottery to make me quit my job, and I just found the $100,000 loan documents he used to fund our wealth. Wow. I, 28 female, Brini, hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, have been with my fiance Jackson, 31 male, for 3 years. 6 months ago, Jackson came home screaming that he had a $5 million scratch-off. He showed me the ticket, the app confirmation, and everything. He begged me to quit my high-stress corporate job so we could travel and plan our dream wedding. For months, we've been living large, first-class flights, a new car, designer clothes, but last week I went looking for our tax documents in his home office. I found a hidden folder. Inside were zero lottery winnings, but there were documents for 3 massive high-interest personal loans totaling over $150,000, all taken out in both our names by forging my signature. Oh my gosh. I confronted him and he completely broke down, saying he just wanted me to respect him as a provider and that he was going to invest the rest in crypto to make the real $5 million. I packed my bags and called a fraud lawyer. Oh my gosh. I don't even know how to address anything. This is a wild, wild story. Wow. Okay. For someone to put on such a show like that and fake a $5 million scratch off, and then to just double and triple and quadruple down, this person begged the person who sent in the story to quit their high-stress corporate job so that they could travel and plan their dream wedding. They've been living large. And then the fact that all of it was deception, it was one big lie. And it's crazy because people really do this stuff. Oh my God, like, financial infidelity is a very, very big thing. People do this stuff. I was watching a great TV show a few weeks ago. It was a drama, and it was actually based on, it was an adaptation of a book. It was based on a true story. And I remember one of the characters did this. The character in the show was saying that they were renting out the house and the Airbnb payments were paying for the mortgage and they were making money. And it was like a boyfriend of this woman. And then it turns out that he was using all the money. He wasn't paying the mortgage. He was taking the checks and he was gambling them. It's crazy because people really do this stuff. But they found zero lottery winnings and huge $150,000 high interest personal loans. What's crazy is that the interest is so high on these that, oh my gosh, I mean, I can't even imagine. You're probably looking at a few $100,000 of interest over the course of paying off these loans, you know, if it's 10 or 20 or 30 years or whatever. It's another thing too to forge a signature, because I think with the right lawyer, I mean, I think this person could get out of here free, you know, to prove that their signature is forged. But absolutely crazy that this person would lie so much, like just because he wanted his spouse to, or his fiance to, respect him as a provider. And like, if that's the case, then like, why not just like work hard, just like do it the old fashioned way, and maybe not lie and like destroy someone else's life. And then this guy, this fiance, sounds like a liar and an idiot, because he goes, oh, that I was going to invest the rest in crypto to make the real 5 million. Crypto, listen, I'm just going to drop this right here. Like, every time I read some of these stories, like, I share my little tidbits here. If you're going to invest in crypto, you really need to limit it to 10% of your net worth, or 10% of your like take home, like monthly income. Crypto is a speculative sort of thing, you know, so please keep this in mind. You know, anyone who's listening out there, like if you're taking notes, just keep in mind that when it comes to crypto, you don't really own anything. Now, if you think about like buying a stock or an index fund, you do own something. You're taking your money and you're actually owning productive assets, and that will make you money, no questions asked. Like, sure, there might be like ups and downs to it, and you might lose money short term, but long term, you're always going to make money with index funds or stocks, because you actually own a portion of a publicly traded company. With crypto, you don't really own anything. There's nothing productive about it. It's honestly the equivalent of buying land, but the land is imaginary. It's not even the equivalent of buying land. It's nothing like real estate. It's kind of like imaginary. I just wouldn't recommend it. So I think it's really dumb that this fiance was like, oh yeah, how are you going to turn 150K into 5 million in crypto? Like, that's another thing. You can't time the market. This guy sounds like an idiot. And I think it's really good that the person who sent in the story packed their bags and they called a fraud lawyer. I think that they can get out of this one just fine. Luckily, they're not legally married. I think that's like a huge win. They're just fiancés, so they're just engaged. So I think that's like a really, really big win. Yeah, so I hope that they stay far, far away from this person. Unfortunately, this is the sort of crazy things that people do, so... yeah, amazing work that this person's just out of there. Hopefully they're going to be okay. Here we go. Here's the next one. I thought my house was haunted. Turns out my husband's dead twin brother has been living in our walls for 8 months. What the heck? Okay. All right. Oh my God. You really can't make these up. Here we go. I, 26 female, Tamsin, married Casimir, 28 male last year. Casimir always told me his twin brother, Leander, died in a boating accident 5 years ago. Shortly after we moved into our new house, weird things started happening. Food went missing. I'd hear coughing from the ceiling vents, and things would move in the night. Casimir always blamed it on the house settling or raccoons. 2 days ago, Casimir went on a business trip. Nah, that's a red flag. Anytime someone goes on a business trip, nah, red flag. I heard a loud crash in the hallway. I grabbed the golf club and crept out, only to see a disheveled man who looked exactly like my husband eating leftover lasagna in my kitchen. I would poop my pants right there. I screamed and he panicked, saying, Tamsin, don't call the cops, it's Leander. It turns out Leander never died. What? He faked his death to escape massive gambling debts, and Casimir has been hiding him in our fully finished hidden crawl space. I am currently staying in a hotel. Oh, oh my goodness. Some of these stories that get sent in are like the plots to a horror film. Are you serious? Like, listen, I get it. Like, I get it. Okay, massive gambling debts. Like, I'm trying to put myself in these people's shoes, especially if someone is maybe it's just gambling with like who knows who he borrowed money from. Sometimes people get wrapped up in the wrong people, and then their livelihood or the people they love most around them are threatened. That is wild work. I get it, but I think the fact that this person, their husband, lied about it. And I think that I get it, like that would be really unfair to his wife, you know, to be like, oh, this is our scheme. he's going to hide here forever and pretend he's dead, and I need you to lie about it. Like, I think that's crazy work to ask your spouse to lie about it. But then to lie to them about it, like, I feel like the best move here would have been for this guy, Leander. He really should have just like left. I think that if you're going to ruin your life and like have a gambling addiction, which is what it is 99% of the time for people, if you're going to take the risk and have a gambling addiction, and then you're going to ruin your life and like accrue massive debts and maybe get wrapped up in the wrong people, it was really selfish for him to wrap up his brother in it. It was foolish and stupid for the husband to even get involved in this. But this guy, Leander, literally should have just like fled the country. You know, like if you've ever seen Breaking Bad, I guess spoiler, if you've never seen Breaking Bad, just pause the video and skip like 30 seconds. But if you have seen the ending of Breaking Bad, big spoiler wall, pretty much at the end of the show, when Walter White ruins everyone's life, his only option is to just go north in the middle of nowhere, very, very, very far away, and never show his face again. That's his only option. To be, you know what I mean? Like, that's it. Like, he has to live in the middle of nowhere, and he's sort of sentenced to, like, solitude forever because there's no other option. So, yeah. And then I didn't even address the fact that, like, this must have really scared the person. Because, like, sometimes, like, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and, like, if a freaking tree or a branch is, like, you know, hitting the window or whatever, like, I'll wake up with an adrenaline rush and I'll think, oh, my God, like, someone's breaking into my home or whatever. But for someone to hear a loud crash in the hallway, you get a golf club, you think your life is going to be threatened, and you just see some, like, nasty-looking man who looks like your husband eating lasagna. That's traumatic. That's actually traumatic. Yeah, and to make up just to lie about the house is haunted, and even like to potentially put this woman, for this guy to put his spouse's like life in danger, you know, like to get her involved in a lie and get her wrapped up in the bad people that his brother owes money to. Yeah, I think it's great that the person who sent in the story is currently staying in a hotel. Yeah, so this is just, I don't even know what else to say about any of this because it's just so unhinged. So yeah, I would probably separate from this person. Like, that's like a really, really big lie. Like, to fake someone's death. Like, I don't know if I could make it back from that. Here's the next one. My girlfriend claimed she was sleepwalking to the kitchen. I set up a camera and caught her running at midnight. Wait, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Caught her running a midnight underground catering business? What the heck? I, 29 male Soren, live with my girlfriend Alara. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, 27 female. But I guess it doesn't really matter if I'm pronouncing this girl's name incorrectly because they were running a secret midnight underground catering business. What in the world? We're going to find out. For the past month, Alara has been exhausted. She claims she developed severe sleepwalking and was waking up with no memory of cooking massive meals in the middle of the night. What? What? In the world? Every morning the kitchen was a disaster zone, but the fridge was empty. What in the world? Worried for her safety, I set up a hidden baby monitor. I checked the footage yesterday. At 1 a.m., Alara walked in the kitchen fully awake, tied on an apron, and started aggressively cooking duck confit and truffle risotto. Those are like such fancy dishes. Like that, those are a lot of work. Risotto is so much work. Duck confit is so much work. At 2:30 a.m., a random guy tapped on her kitchen window, handed her a wad of cash, and she passed him 5 perfectly plated to-go boxes. She isn't sleepwalking. She's running an illegal late-night gourmet food drop out of our apartment because she got fired from her restaurant job and didn't want to tell me. She says I'm invading her privacy for recording her. What in the world? I don't even know, like, what to say about this. Like, I guess, listen, a lot of these stories that I'm reading here, unfortunately, like, a lot of people are victim to deception. And I don't think that's okay. I don't think people deserve that. I understand sometimes why people aren't honest, because they're afraid of the person's reaction, or they're afraid that they might be left alone in the dust. But let's just look at it like bird's eye view here. She got fired from her job and didn't want to tell him. And the truth is always going to be the best option here if we could take anything away from these stories. She really should have just been like, yeah, I got fired. And like, you know, I think it's really admirable that she's working so hard. But I think like honesty is always the best policy, you know? So shame on her for lying, especially like, I don't know. I feel like claiming that she's sleepwalking and like making her boyfriend really, really concerned for her safety, that's totally not fair. Because it's like, this person, Soren, who sent in the story, like, now what? Like, he's probably feels so like deceived and naive, you know? I mean, I think it's good on them for setting up the cameras and everything, but like, how do you even confront someone about that? Like, I don't know. It's totally wrong for this person to have like lied about this and deceived their partner in thinking that they have like a really serious medical condition. But like, when was she planning on telling him that she lost her job? Like, that's just not fair to him at all. So, you know, I don't know. Another thing too that's like really, really weird is that she says I'm invading her privacy for recording her. And she didn't want to tell him that she got fired from the job. Like, I think it's wild work to lie to someone repeatedly and deceive them and be doing things behind their back and then like making them concerned for your safety and your health. And then when they want answers because they have a gut feeling that something's wrong, you make the claim that they're invading your privacy for recording. That's wild work here. Whether or not they should break up, I don't know. But like, I honestly don't really know if I would trust someone again if they lied to me on this level. You know, like, I think if someone lost their job and then it was like a week and they were just working up like the confidence and the courage to tell me, and they were really fearful of like how I might react, I get that. And I would be like, okay, I wish you told me sooner, but like, if that's it, like, I get it. Like, you were going to tell, and I found out through them. I didn't find out through some other means. I would be like, okay, that's fine. But I think like, I don't know, how long has this been going on? Did the person who sent in the story, it past month. So it's been going on for 4 weeks. I think like if someone has been lost their job for 4 weeks, they didn't tell me, and then I found out, and then on top of them like not telling me about them losing their job, I also find out that they're like running like some sort of illegal, technically that is illegal. I think you have to have like a license like to you know, be serving food and like making money. So it is technically illegal. But like, if I found out that is on top of the lies, and then they go, oh, you're invading my privacy, I don't know. I think that might be grounds for like a breakup here, because it's like, if you're willing to go through all of that effort to hide something from me on top of just like not telling me that you got fired from your job, like, what more would you be willing to do while I'm sleeping? That's extremely shady business. Like, that's just my opinion. I don't know what yours is. So I thought my boyfriend was just obsessed with my health. Then I found the lab results proving he secretly tested me for a kidney match. I, 25 female Vesper, have been dating Thaddeus. I don't know how I feel about that name. 30 male for 6 months. He was always super attentive, constantly asking about my diet, making me drink water, and even asking for my family's medical history. I thought it was sweet. Last week, I had some routine blood work done, and Thaddeus offered to pick me up the physical copy for me. I read that very wrong. Offered to pick up the physical copy for me. Yesterday, I was looking for a pen in his desk and found a thick folder with my name on it. Inside were my blood work results, but attached to them was an intense genetic compatibility report. Thaddeus has early-stage kidney failure, which he never told me about, and he swiped a used coffee cup from me on our third date to run private DNA tests. He only started dating me because my rare blood type matched his, and he was grooming me to volunteer as his donor. When confronted, he just coldly asked if I was still willing to do that surgery. Wow. This is literally like the plot of the film Get Out. It really is crazy what people are willing to do. On this note, if you've never seen Lost, you need to watch Lost, because without really spoiling anything, there are some wild plot lines in the TV show Lost where there is a character who finds himself in a very strange situation that is similar to this one. It is a roller coaster. People do this stuff in real life. It is insanity. It really is like supervillain behavior. And when confronted, the fact that they like completely and shamelessly just say coldly, "Are you still willing to do the surgery?" just goes to show that like they really were never interested in a relationship at all. And it's crazy because they were dating for 6 months. And it's like the only reason that they were even being a good partner is because they wanted, it's crazy. They just wanted a donor. They wanted a kidney. That's the only reason they were treating this person like kindly. And it's crazy. It's actual like sociopath level behavior to take a used coffee cup on the third date to run a private DNA test. So like, what was that about? Why didn't you just do it on the first date? Like, did you have to like grow a pair of balls to do it? And by the third date, you were like, all right, it's game time. Like, are you, I don't understand. Maybe it was just like happenstance, like a perfect circumstance where maybe she didn't throw away the coffee cup on the third date, but on the first and second she did. Yeah, this is like really, really wrong. I think from here on out, I'm always going to throw my coffee cups away if I go out. But yeah, this is like really strange. I feel like I would never trust another human being if like I found myself in a situation like this. I don't really even know what more to say about it other than like people really will do anything when it comes to survival. And it's like, I don't understand when it comes to like a kidney transplant, like kidney donor list, like, is it really that bad? Is it the kind of thing where like, if you're only in a life-threatening situation, like that's when you can actually get a kidney donor? I don't really understand what that situation looks like. But yeah, to have like a thick folder with the writer of the story with, you know, to have a thick folder with all this, you know, genetic compatibility report, that's like a Get Out level, like twisted stuff. It's really, really sick. So that person's definitely sick in the head. I think like they definitely owed an apology if they could have just said like, you know what, I realized this was really wrong, and now that you're aware of it, like, wow, I'm really sorry. I think I just got carried away here, and I'm just in survival mode, and I made a mistake, and if you don't want to hear from me again, like, I understand. Like, you know, this is just, it's also just like an invasion of privacy. It's like a violation of this person's body. Yeah. And what I'm trying to figure out too is that are they living together? Because the person who sent in the story said that they needed a pen in the guy's desk. So I don't know if they were just like at their place or something, but yeah, wow. Okay. Anyways, that was just a really disturbing one. So here's the next one. You guys ready? Am I the asshole for exposing our HOA president after I discovered she's using our fees to build a luxury doomsday bunker for the board? What? These stories just continue to get more and more disturbing. Now, some of these names I'm not really sure how to pronounce. I'm going to butcher it, so I did actually go to school with someone with this first name. Here we go. I-34 male, Gideon, live in a neighborhood with outrageous HOA fees. Almost $800 a month, which, wow, that's a lot. The president, I don't know how to pronounce the president's name, Xanthi, 50 female, always claims it goes towards future infrastructure. Last month, I noticed a massive construction truck. No, massive construction trucks, plural, going into the woods behind Xanthi's property at 3 a.m. That's a really strange time to get delivery. I followed them one night and found a massive excavation site. I dug through public county permits and found out Xanthi isn't building a community pool. What? She has siphoned over $400,000 of HOA funds to construct a state-of-the-art underground fallout bunker, complete with a wine cellar and hydroponic gardens. What? What is this, like a freaking Resident Evil facility? The kicker. Access is strictly limited to the 5 HOA board members. I printed out the blueprints and bank transfers transfers and glued them to poster boards and set them up at the community entrance. The neighborhood erupted. Xanthi is facing embezzlement charges, but her husband cornered me and said I've doomed them all for when the grid goes down. Wow. Every single time I read a story that's sent in, I'm just like, what? I don't even know how to like unpack this. Like, what in the world? I think with some of these stories that I read, sometimes you have to wonder, like, it does kind of take two to tango. You know, if you're living in a neighborhood... Now, I don't know if this is, like, this must be a house. These are either houses or condos. This could not be an apartment. But if you're going to buy a house or a condo and you have almost $1,000 a month HOA fee, wouldn't you kind of ask some questions before you, like, move in there and go, like, well, what does this go towards? And the president claims it goes towards future infrastructure. Okay, like, with that claim, maybe you would ask, you know, to not be foolish and not be naive and say, like, well, can you show me some examples of like infrastructure that you've made with this HOA fee, the $1,000, almost $1,000 a month? And, you know, you imagine if you have, I don't know, 300 people, like that's a lot of money coming in. That is a lot of money. I mean, what is that? 30 grand a month. So we're talking $36,000 a year, right? If my math is right. It takes some balls to have construction trucks going to the woods behind the president's property. So, like, the president lives on this property in this HOA community. And that's wild to do that so blatantly. Of course, it seems like they tried to cover it up by doing it at 3 a.m. But, like, where in the world would you find a company that does deliveries at 3 a.m.? That's, like, really, like, weird and sketchy. But, yeah, the fact that it's all public permits... And what? It looks like the president was telling everyone it was a community pool, but she siphoned $400,000 of HOA funds to construct an underground fallout bunker. And like the fact that the permit showed the wine cellar and the hydroponic gardens, that's crazy. And then the fact that somehow, I don't know how they found out that access is strictly limited to the 5 HOA board members, which is crazy because the HOA fees are for everyone in the community, but then access is only for the board members, which is like really not fair at all. So I think good on them for just printing out all the evidence. Honestly, I would have probably gone to the police. But yeah, the neighborhood rightly erupted, rightfully so. And now the president is facing embezzlement charges, and good for them. They should go to jail for a long time. But the fact that her husband said that they've doomed them all for when the grid goes down, did this person, Gideon, like, did they doom them all, or did they just doom the 5 HOA board members who are going to have access to the bunker? For some reason, this reminds me of all the horrible stuff going on down south in the United States. I can't remember what it was. It was like natural disasters or something. And then you had that huge megachurch guy. I cannot remember his name, but he just like wouldn't let people into his church like for shelter. This reminds me of that sort of situation. This is actually crazy. I don't think the grid is going to go down anytime soon. It would literally take like nuclear fallout for the grid to go down. People always like are fearmonger, and they say, "Oh no, the stock market's going to crash and the grid's going to go down, and everything's going to fall apart." But everything is so intertwined that it would really take like literal World War III or nuclear fallout in order for everything to fall apart. So I just don't think that's happening. Look at any people who are making any sort of predictions or like Y2K, and it's just like, it's never going to happen. I could be wrong. Maybe I'll eat my words. Maybe the next episode of A&R Yaps will be me, and I'll be in the HOA shelter with the other 4 board members. I don't know. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. And you know what's wild? This probably wasn't even a doomsday bunker. It was probably like just some little getaway for the 5 board members to like party or something. But yeah, I think good on this person. Like, that takes a lot of bravery to speak up and like out them like that. So yeah, I think the board members should face fallout in federal prison. So my fiance proposed with a massive diamond. During our engagement party, his ex walked in with a repo man to take it right off my finger. What in the world? I, 27 female Serafina, got engaged to Lachlan, 29 male, 2 weeks ago. He proposed with a breathtaking 3-carat diamond ring. I was stunned because we aren't wealthy. This past weekend, we hosted our engagement party with 50 of our closest friends and family. Right in the middle of Lachlan's toast, the front door opened. It was his ex-fiancée. I don't even know how to pronounce this woman's name. Morel. I don't know how to pronounce it. Accompanied by a literal repossession agent and a police officer. Wow. Morel loudly announced that the ring on my finger was her family heirloom, which Lachlan had stolen from her jewelry box when she kicked him out 3 months prior to us dating. Lachlan tried to run out the back door but was stopped by my dad. Wow, that's wild. Good work, Dad. I had to hand the ring over to the police in front of everyone. Lachlan is now begging me to stay, saying he only stole it because he wanted me to feel like a queen. I dumped him on the spot. Good on you. These stories get crazier and crazier. I just want to add in here, for anyone listening, looking for some life advice here, I will say this, like, some of the details here in this story, she kicked him out 3 months prior to us dating. If someone, like, had been, you know, recently in a relationship, and you hear, oh, well, you know, I just broke up with this person a week ago, a month ago, a few months ago, like, that could potentially be like a pretty big red flag. You know, so just keep that in mind. Like, generally speaking, I think sometimes it can be good to hear that someone has had like 1 or 2 relationships where maybe, I don't know, maybe they were just sort of figuring out like the dating world. I think that's okay. But, you know, if you end up dating someone, you find out that they were just in like a long-term relationship or something, and it's only been a few weeks or 3 months, that sometimes can be a red flag, you know, for a variety of reasons. It could mean that the person hasn't really processed or reflected about the prior relationship, you know. So I guess keep that in mind, a little like life tip, life advice here. That's like a pretty big thing. I think, you know, if someone's in a relationship and they separate, it's really important to really look back and reflect and think about like, where did the other person go wrong, but also where did I go wrong? Like, where could I have done better here? And like, what did I learn about myself? And like, how can I bring this reflection into the next relationship that I'm in, and you know, and just do better and make sure that like it works out okay. That's super important, you know. So I think back to the story. For this guy, you know, 3-month gap in between the relationship. And what's crazy, though, is that this couple, they got engaged 2 weeks ago from the time that they sent in the story, right? How long they've been together, I don't know. But what's crazy is that, like, they could have been together for a long time. It could have been months. It could have been a year, years. And only now to find out, like, his ex-fiancée probably thought that it was just stolen. But it says here, Lachlan had stolen from her jewelry box when she kicked him out 3 months prior to us dating. So how are we taking that story that she kicked him out for whatever reason? We don't even know. We have no idea why she kicked him out. It could be something even worse. But then in retaliation of getting kicked out, he stole this family heirloom. And then this woman, this ex-fiancée, probably thought like, oh no, it was stolen, I lost it. But then somehow, who knows, they figured out, okay, this guy definitely stole it. It's possible that when he proposed, she posted online and then they put 2 and 2 together, right? And it would have been really awkward, I think, if they brought the police, the repo agent, and they shut down the wedding and it was not the ring. But like, yeah, I mean, if it looks exactly like the ring and the ring went missing, like there has to be some way to confirm that it was actually the stolen ring. Otherwise, that would be very awkward. But again, what is the likelihood here that like, oh yeah, it just happens to be a similar looking ring, you know? I mean, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck, you know? So anyways, Lachlan is now begging me to stay, saying he only stole it because he wanted me to feel like a queen. But like, that doesn't really make any sense. That doesn't really add up with his side of the story, because Lachlan stole the ring from her jewelry box when she kicked him out 3 months prior to us dating. But I don't understand. It's very possible that we're missing some major details here. He said he stole it because he wanted this woman to feel like a queen. So, like, is that why he got kicked out? Because he met this girl, Serafina, and then wanted her to feel like a queen? Maybe the Morel woman found out, oh, okay, he's being scandalous and cheating, and then kicked him out. I don't know. This is a very complicated story. But, yeah, suffice to say, like, that's probably the end of the wedding. So I don't even understand. He stole his ex's family heirloom to propose. That is actually crazy. And like, what did he think was coming to him? Like, did he think that this wasn't going to come around? Yeah, but having it repossessed in the middle of the toast is actually just crazy. It was Lachlan's toast. In the middle of that's when the repo man walked in, which is crazy. But it does sound like this person who sent in the story did dodge a massive bullet. Yeah, to say to someone, I wanted you to feel like a queen while literally like committing like a major theft crime is actually crazy, crazy work. So, all right. Well, anyways, I could share more stories, but I'll just sort of yap a little bit before the end of this video. Anyone who has been listening or subscribing, I definitely appreciate the support. If you want to send in stories, just drop them in the comments, whatever you so desire. And yeah, I'm going to be posting more of these videos. I think they're a pretty good time. We got some real wacky stories to listen to in the background. So, I am working on some other projects too. I'll just put that out there. So like I have this channel and Andaru Yaps. I'm very, very excited about it. I hope we can get a ton of viewers. People can send in their craziest stories and we could talk about them in the comments and just sort of react together. Another thing I'm working on too is I have Andaru Reacts. So I'm just reacting to all sorts of content, mostly like gaming and Minecraft stuff. So I know that this channel is more focused on just like crazy stories sent in. Has a very like Woody's gamer tag style feel, so anyways, yeah, so it's been a really good time yapping here with you, and please send in more stories. And always nice to hear that the people who send in the stories, it's sort of an after the fact, and they hopefully, even though they got some scuffs and bruises, they sort of dodge the bullet and sort of get out alive. So always good to hear about that. But I will have more crazy and wacky stories coming in soon, coming in hot. And with that, I will tell you to enjoy your day, and thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe and listen to me on Spotify too. I'm uploading all this stuff to Spotify. All right, bye. Hey there, this is Andaru, and this is a completely new series called Andaru Yaps. My viewers send in crazy, wacky, engaging stories. I'm going to tell you all about them, and then I'm going to yap about it a little bit. And hopefully, it'll be engaging enough where we'll talk about it in the comments section. And all the while, there's going to be some fun Minecraft gameplay in the background. And if you want to put this on while you work, or put it on to fall asleep, or put it on while you're building a Lego set, or, just trying to get through the work day or the school day or whatever. So anyways, let's start it off. Some of these stories are wacky. Here's story number 1. Am I the jerk for secretly replacing my roommate's expensive, in quotes, expensive vegan butter with cheap margarine? What in the world? That is such a wacky prank to play on someone. I haven't read the full story, but I get the feeling that this is some sort of like passive aggressive thing. Like roommate 1, the person who sent in the story, was pissed off at their roommate. So what is this, like dipping the toothbrush in the toilet? Let's find out. I, 24 female, live with a roommate, Chloe. That's in quotes, so I think that's maybe like a secret identity, like a pseudonym. Chloe's 25 female, so they're about the same age, a year apart. Chloe is obsessed with aesthetics and status. A month ago, she started buying this ridiculously expensive, I don't even know how to say this word, artisanal? I don't even know. Imported vegan butter that costs like $18 a tub. The problem, she never actually eats it. She just keeps it in the fridge so people see it when they come over. Odd. Last week I was baking and ran out of regular butter. In a pinch I used her fancy vegan butter. I panicked because I couldn't afford to replace an $18 tub of butter. So I went to the store, bought a $2 tub of basic yellow margarine, and scooped it into her artisanal container. I hope I'm saying that word right. I figured she wouldn't notice since she never eats it. Well, yesterday she hosted a brunch. She spread the butter on toast for her guests and spent 20 minutes bragging about the complex, in quotes, earthy grass-fed notes, end quotes, of the vegan spread. I had to excuse myself because I was laughing so hard. My other friend noticed me cracking up, and I told her the truth. She told Chloe. Now Chloe's furious, demanding I pay her $50 for emotional distress and, quote, sabotaging her palate. Am I the jerk? Okay, yeah, this is pretty wacky here. Like, let's just think about this for a moment. So I definitely get it. Like, you're baking and you run out of regular butter, and it's like, oh, okay, like there's this fancy, expensive imported vegan butter in the fridge. My roommate literally never uses it. Like, we don't actually know how long they weren't using it for, but it sounds like it was about a month, because the person who sent in the story said a month ago she started buying this butter, and last week. So, we're talking probably a 3-week period here where her roommate just didn't use the butter, right? So yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, you're baking and, oh no, I need butter for this and it's going to be ruined without it. I don't really know what else you could substitute. I don't think it's actually easy. I remember some science experiments where like you can turn like cream into butter and buttermilk, but if you don't have cream, you're probably kind of screwed. So yeah, I get it. So she uses the fancy vegan butter, and I will say, like, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. She couldn't afford to replace the butter, so she bought the $2 basic margarine and put it into this fancy container. I think really what could have been better here is just the truth, is just like honesty and just being like, hey, I'm really sorry. Honestly, her roommate probably wouldn't have even cared that much, but she was dishonest, so she bought the $2 tub of basic yellow margarine and replaced it. And I do get her perspective. Like, she figured that her roommate just wouldn't notice because she never eats it. And then out of nowhere, this is always the way things are. It's the way things are for everything in life. You have something and you say, I don't need this. I haven't used it in a year. You get rid of it. And then the next week, all of a sudden your brain is like, oh, well, now I needed it. So yeah, she hosts a brunch out of the blue. She spreads the butter on the toast. She's in, I do have to say, I do think both people in this story, like, are kind of in the wrong here. I think it's one thing to just, like, for one sentence, say, like, hey, guests to my brunch, this is a fancy vegan butter. It tastes really, really good, and there's some really complex, like, notes in here, and I'm really excited. I want you guys all to enjoy it. One sentence, I think that's fine. But to spend 20 minutes bragging about this like $20 vegan spread, especially in this economy, I think is really, really crazy. So like, I think both roommates are kind of, I don't know, one sounds dishonest, one sounds, sorry whoever sent this in. I can't remember who exactly sent it in, but one sounds kind of dishonest and one sounds kind of pretentious. So anyways, yeah, the person who sent this in just said that they had to excuse themselves because they're laughing so hard. And it's like, again, I don't know how I feel about that. Because not only did you lie, you were dishonest. Like, you could have just been honest in the first place. But it sounds like it was almost some sort of like devious prank. Like, she took pride in replacing the butter. I don't know how I feel about that. I think like if someone is being pretentious or a jerk or like bragging about things, like, I don't necessarily think I agree with this route. I think maybe the best course is like, if you don't like your roommate because you think they're like pretentious, or, maybe there's like two completely different socioeconomic classes or whatever it may be, maybe just like get a different roommate, or just try to accept them for who they are, or just like in a calm way, maybe just say like, hey, I made this observation. I heard you talking a lot about your very expensive butter. And the impact that it had on me is that, like, I can't even afford a tub of butter that's $18. And I felt hurt, I don't know, something like that, a very like I statement way of just communicating. Anyways, yeah, so what's crazy about this, though, is that the person who sent in the story is just laughing. They're laughing hard about it. Anyways, they said that their other friend noticed her laughing, and then she finally, burst out with the truth. Her roommate Chloe is furious, demanding that she pays $50 for emotional distress and sabotaging her palette. Again, both people are kind of in the wrong here because this Chloe person just sounds kind of pretentious and just like infuriating. Like $50 for emotional distress? Like what in the world is that? Look, both people can totally grow here. Chloe should really just be like, all right, I think the person who sent in the story, I think they're kind of immature. I think Chloe also could try to be a little bit more open-minded and a little less pretentious with like the money. Demanding $50 for emotional distress is actually a crazy thing. The best course of action here is literally to just be like, hey, I'm upset that you like you used my butter. You didn't ask. We're roommates, and you really should have asked. I'm also upset that you replaced it and you didn't tell me and you were dishonest about it. And then I was really excited about this butter, and you were laughing because you replaced it, and then you saw me serving it to everybody, I was telling everyone that it was expensive butter. In the future, can you just like ask if you're going to use my butter and just don't replace it? Like, I do really like this butter, even though I don't use it often. Like, yeah, saying that someone sabotaged their palate is crazy. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I guess I sort of see both sides to the story here. It sounds like both people, and this is usually the case, is usually when both people are going at it like this, both people are contributing to the story. I always like to say it takes two to tango. So anyways, yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Let's move on to the second story. Here we go. My fiance wants to invite her work husband on our honeymoon and called me insecure when I said no, which is an insane thing. I'm going to get into the story, but dear God, the climate that we live in, I really heavily disagree with the concept of work wife and work husband. It's really, really weird. And it's such a huge disrespect towards someone's marriage for whoever the work husband is and whoever the actual spouse is. It's just like, what a way to dishonor a marriage. Even if it is just like, oh, haha, like no, that's so weird. So anyways, let's read the whole story. My fiance, 27 female, and I, 29 male, are getting married in 4 months. We've been planning a 2-week honeymoon to Japan, which sounds very cool, which has been my dream since I was a kid. Is that not every young boy's dream? Last night we were going over the itinerary, and she casually mentioned that we should upgrade to a 2-bedroom suite. When I asked why, she said her coworker, Derek, has always wanted to go to Japan, so she invited him to tag along. For context, Derek is what she calls her work husband. They get coffee every morning, text constantly, and have all these inside jokes. That is really weird. Oh man, if I was engaged to someone, no way. I would be speaking up about that. This is crazy. So the person said, I've always tried to be cool about it because I trust her, but a honeymoon is supposed to be romantic and intimate. I told her absolutely not. She immediately got defensive, telling me I was being entirely too insecure and that Derek just wants to see the architecture. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Derek wants to see someone's architecture. She said if I don't let Derek come, it proves I don't trust her. We haven't spoken since. That is crazy. That is really wild. And again, you know what's so interesting? Every story that I read, if you really think about it and you stay open-minded, you realize that both people are contributing. Now, I will say it's completely out of line for this person's fiance to be doing any of this stuff. In the first place, like, his fiance should not be getting coffee every morning and texting constantly and having all these inside jokes. It's totally inappropriate. It completely disrespects and dishonors like the vow that they're about to make for their marriage. But then on the other side of that same token, the person who sent in this story, like, I get it. I do get it. Like, they said, I've always tried to be cool about it because I trust her. See, in my opinion, that's the problem here. That's the main source of the problem. Of course, I think this person in the story, his fiance, is the problem. But Her behavior is the problem, at least, is what I mean. But his lack of boundaries, I think, really heavily contributes to the situation. And I think it's something that we should all really try and think about. So, as I share these stories, try and think about like how you can learn from people's mistakes, and you can learn from other people's situations. A big part, I think, of boundaries in relationship and in general, just beyond like relationship boundaries, is literally just speaking up in the moment. And then again, like I said for some of the other stories here, if you use I statements and you said, hey, this is what I observed. This is the impact that it had. Like, this is how I felt. Actually, a lot of that I learned from working at the Apple Store a really long time ago. Their training is really, really good for retail. And I'm sure training even beyond retail is really, really good. But you could tell that the person who sent in the story just never really spoke up. He never spoke up about it. He never said like, hey, like, I'm going to be completely honest with you. You're getting coffee every morning with someone who isn't me. Like, we're about to get married and like you're texting this other guy who constantly more than me. He's not me, and like you guys have all these inside jokes. Like, you have more inside jokes than we do. And like, I feel really uncomfortable about that. And like, listen, it really depends on the person watching this, like you, as I say you. It really depends on what you are comfortable with. That's the thing. It's all about just speaking up. If someone's comfortable with this, maybe where the line is drawn is someone just saying, hey, I'm cool with you having this friend of the opposite sex, but do you think maybe you could get coffee with me more often than them? Like, and just like have that balance, like, do you think like if you're going to text this friend who happens to be a guy, like, do you think maybe you could just text me more than them? And like, I feel uncomfortable when everything is poured into someone who isn't me, someone you're about to marry. Or if where your boundaries are, you just say, hey, however you approach things. If you are saying, hey, I don't have any friends of the opposite sex, they're only family, and I don't think I'm comfortable with you being this close to someone who is male who isn't me. It really depends on what you're comfortable with. And like, this guy who sent in the story, he clearly hasn't spoken up about anything. He's let it go this far. Clearly, like, his fiance thinks all this is cool, which is why like she thinks that it's cool to bring another guy in the honeymoon, which is an insane thing to do. That's crazy. That is so weird. But if her soon-to-be husband has never spoken up, she probably thought all this was cool. It's, So anyways, it's like, oh my God. I'm not saying the guy who sent in the story is completely in the wrong, but like they both have made some big goofs here. So yeah, anyways, like her reaction too was really, really out of hand as well. I think it's great that the person who sent in the story is trying to be trusting of her, but the fact that she got defensive, told him he was being too insecure and that Derek just wants to see the architecture. Like, I think that's a really big red flag. I think for someone to get really, really defensive. Now, again, another thing here is that like, how did the person communicate it? I think it's also kind of red flaggy that he just never spoke up. It clearly, the phrase "I've always tried to be cool about it" clearly tells me that the person who sent in the story has not been cool about it. And like, of course, his fiance got defensive because he hasn't spoken up about anything. So yeah, I mean, like, I think every step of the way, if he were to just speak up and just say like, hey, like, this is what I'm observing, and like, this is the impact that it's having. Like, I feel really uncomfortable with this. Maybe she wouldn't have gotten super defensive, So anyways, I think the fact that they haven't spoken is crazy, but like, I don't know if I'm really playing like Maury here, if I'm really playing, what are some of those other goofy shows where like the counselor like helps the two people in the relationship duke it out? I mean, like, they should really talk. Obviously, bringing a third person on a honeymoon is an insane thing to do. They're obviously not doing that. I know this is going to sound crazy. This is going to be a hot take, but I do think that the guy who sent in the story really should apologize to his fiance and just say like, I recognize that I didn't speak up about any of this and I waited until the last minute. What's crazy is that like, I've done that before, and I think probably a lot of people who are listening have done that before too. And what's crazy is that like, you're trying to give someone the benefit of the doubt, but really what you're doing is you're like rejecting your own emotions. It's like you're feeling like, oh, I feel uncomfortable, and you're not speaking up about it, and you say, oh, well, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But like, really what you need to do is just speak up. There's nothing wrong with speaking up. Because at the end of the day, it can just be a, hey, I would like to talk to you about something that might be heavy. Do you have the capacity for that? And then the person might say, yeah, sure, yeah, let's do it. And you just say like, hey, like, I feel really uncomfortable about this. I can't speak. Uncomfortable about it and about this and whatever this is. And can we talk about it? Like, I'm not asking you to solve any problems or make any changes, but do you think we could at least just talk about this? Can we come up with some sort of plan? So yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if we're gonna see more in some of these other stories, but it really does take two to tango. Obviously, I'm putting this out as a disclaimer. Obviously, this guy's fiance is totally out of line for suggesting bringing a third person to a honeymoon. And obviously, like I said at the beginning, a work wife or work husband is so disrespectful, and it just like does not honor the covenant that a marriage is and the vows that people make. Like, I think at the end of the day, it's weird. It's just like people get married, and like if you believe in monogamy, it's you have one spouse, and to go to work and joke about like, oh, I have a spouse at work, that's really weird. And then I think even just in general, like pouring more energy into another person who isn't your significant other, I think personally is wrong. I think it's a red flag, and I think it's something that people just shouldn't do. It's just gonna turn your life into a mess. So. Anyways, I could yap more about this one, but let's keep on moving. Story 3. Title: Am I the asshole for kicking my entitled cousin out of my house after she demanded I give her my dog? This is a weird one. I have no idea what to expect here. I, 26 male, have a 3-year-old golden retriever named Barnaby. That's a cute name. He's my entire world. Last weekend, though, I hosted a family barbecue. My cousin Karen, that's a coincidence, 32 female, brought her 5-year-old son, Leo. Leo loved Barnaby, and Barnaby is super gentle. So they played fetch for hours. When it was time to leave, Leo threw a massive tantrum because he wanted to take the dog home. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you get kids, they're going to throw tantrums. Instead of parenting her child, Karen walked up to me and asked how much I wanted for Barnaby. What the hell? The person says, I laughed, thinking she was joking. I said, he's not for sale. He's my family. Karen got serious. She said I was a single guy who worked too much, and Barnaby would have a better life with a child to play with. That's a crazy thing. Man, I'll talk about that later. She demanded I pack up his toys and let them take him. That's crazy. When I told her she was out of her mind, she started screaming that I was selfish and making her son cry. Dear Lord, like mother, like son. They're both crying now. I ended up telling her to get off my... Was I just speaking English? I ended up telling her to get off my property immediately. Now my aunt is texting me saying I should have just lent them the dog for a few weeks to keep the peace. All right. Like I said, this is a really, really crazy one. I will say, one comment I want to make about this is that you, the listener, hey there, you might know some people who have a pet, especially a dog. Dogs, I think, need a lot more attention than cats. Even there's a lot of animals that actually just need way more attention and upkeep. Dogs, bunnies, if you've ever had a bunny, like, yeah, you might know someone who has a dog and they just really end up neglecting their dog. And, sometimes, unfortunately, even parents neglect their children, and I don't think they intend to. It's just lifestyle creep. It's like, you want to have this big happy family, and then you didn't financially plan correctly, and then you just spend all your time working. I do think the responsible thing to do is if you get a dog, like, yeah, I get it. Everyone has to work, so if you're at work from 9 to 5 and like, maybe you can come home on a few breaks and your boss can be understanding and you check up on your dog, but generally speaking, like, I do get the perspective that like, okay, this person has a dog and they don't spend as much time with the dog that I would. But at the end of the day, like, every pet owner, this is excluding like some sort of insane incident of like abuse, but like people who are pet owners really are just doing their best. Like, I have cats and it's like I get busy and sometimes I just don't spend as much time with them as I would really like to. So anyways, beyond that though, this is just super crazy. I think it was nice that the young boy, which would have been his nephew, right, was having fun playing with the dog. And it's like, I get it. I get it, because he threw a tantrum, and like that is the way kids are. You know, if you ever end up having kids, or if you are a listener and you have kids right now, it's the way kids are. They have tantrums and they don't get things that they want, and like we have to hold space for their feelings and like help them to like regulate and just sort of get back to normal. And sometimes we have to set boundaries and, you know, whatever it may be, put them in timeout or whatever. Clearly, Karen did not do that. It's an insane thing to walk up to somebody and say like, how much do you want for your dog? That's a really crazy thing. I don't think the person who sent in this story, I don't think they're neglecting their dog. You know, like they clearly are taking care of their dog. Yeah, it's just absolutely wild to go up to someone and say like, oh, you're single, you work too much, and like your dog would have a better life with a child to play with. That's such an outspoken thing to say to someone. Like, you have to have, I don't know what you have to have. You have to be crazy to say that to someone. Even if you think that, it's so rude and out of pocket. So, yeah, to demand someone to pack up the toys and let them take the dog on the spot. And then for Karen to start screaming, you know, and having a tantrum, and then putting the blame on the writer who sent in the story, to put the blame and say, oh, you made my son cry. I think is what he was trying to say. Good on him, the person who sent this in, you know, to just set that boundary and just tell Karen, like, get off my property immediately. And then for her to text afterwards and be like, oh, you should just let us borrow the dog to keep the peace. That's a wild thing. Yeah, I mean, look, with this sort of thing, I do think the person who sent in the story like handled this situation to the best of their ability. It sounds like they just have a family member who just, you know, is really out of pocket. I don't even know what I would do in that situation. Unfortunately, I think the person who sent this in, like, they did everything to the best of their ability. This is the situation for most people. Like, you have a dog, you give them as much love as you can, but like, I think as long as you're not neglecting or abusing your pet or your animal, part of loving your pet or animal is like, you know, you're going to work and you're paying the bills so that you can afford to give them like good experiences in your time. 9 to 5 workday is pretty much a staple for everything that needs to live, you know, except for plants or maybe a cow or something. So anyways, yeah, I don't even know. I think the only thing I'd really recommend here is the person who experienced this, I would just recommend to have better boundaries. Again, you know, I get it. It's easier said than done. I don't know if it's the kind of thing where it can be an unspoken boundary where you just kind of like don't invite this person to the family gatherings as often. Or maybe you could just have a calm word with Karen and just say, hey, you know, I really didn't, I felt very disrespected, you know, when I heard you ask me how much money do I want for my dog, because like the person said, like, that dog is his family. And to just calmly ask the person, I would like you to just not do that again. And I would really appreciate it when you're here with your child to just make sure that your child, you know, is with you when they're having a tantrum. And if you could just sort of take them out of the space, because it really just caused a lot of chaos. So anyways, wow, that is just a really crazy one. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Story number 4. My girlfriend makes me sign a contract every time we have an argument. I, 25 male, have been dating my girlfriend, 24 female, for a year. Things are mostly great, but she has this one habit that's driving me insane. She's a law student, and whenever we have a disagreement, no matter how small, she types up a resolution contract. I'm not kidding. That is crazy. If we argue about where to get dinner, she will print a document stating who compromised, who gets to pick the next time, and the penalties if the agreement is broken. Last week, I left a wet towel on the bed. She printed a 2-page document outlining my negligence and demanded I sign a clause stating I would buy her coffee for a week as restitution. I finally snapped and told her I'm her boyfriend, not a client, and I refused to sign another piece of paper. She accused me of not taking our relationship seriously and said the contracts are her love language. Am I in the wrong here? Excuse me. I had to clear my throat. Oh my goodness. There's so much to unpack here. No, you're not in the wrong. I don't even know like how you, how to handle a situation like this, because he starts off saying, well, things are mostly great. But this is a really weird habit. Like, whenever we have a disagreement, no matter how small, she types up a contract. Now, it really depends on how often is there a disagreement. If it's once a week, like, maybe you could handle it. But I think generally speaking, just looking like more future forward, I couldn't imagine starting a family, if that's what you want. I couldn't imagine starting a family with someone. You can't do this to kids. Like, that's going to really, really mess them up. You know, so excuse me, for some reason this story has just like made me lose my voice. I'm just completely flabbergasted. You can't do this to kids. I have stories I could share, but for anyone to treat someone like they're like an employee or a client, it's really, really weird. And I think it's a super red flag to say that the contracts are her love language. I don't know what's going on there. Like, I'm not Sigmund Freud. I'm not going to be able to psychoanalyze and break down what is going on for this person's girlfriend. I don't know if they just like feel safe beyond like contracts. I don't know if there's some major hurt in the background where like maybe they feel a lot safer knowing that like, okay, like someone has signed this contract and like that's going to protect me from some sort of like major childhood trauma or hurt that I experienced in the past. I think at the end of the day, I'm really getting into a tangent here, but I think at the end of the day, really what protects us from getting hurt, I think a big thing is pattern recognition. Now, this is someone that no one really taught me, but you know, we don't want to get hurt. And sometimes we do slip up, and sometimes we do hurt others, the people around us. We hurt people's feelings by accident. And, you know, hopefully for those small things, like you make a mistake and you own up to it and you take accountability and you say, you know, I'm really sorry I messed up here. Like, I said this thing that was really hurtful, or whatever you did to make a mistake. You know, I didn't tell you this. You weren't the first person I told about this, or, you know, I forgot to tell you this, or whatever, you know, and hey, I can see that I really hurt you. And like, I'm really going to try hard not to do this again, you know, because I don't want to hurt you. I do care about your feelings. So I think pattern recognition is such a big thing. And like, for this person's girlfriend to be hiding behind like contracts, it's craziness. It's craziness, you know? And I think for her to just like step into the shoes of pattern recognition, it's a much healthier thing. But that's the thing though, that argument is like a straw man, because she's using contracts about wet towels on the bed. And it's like, this is about like minor inconveniences, you know? I'm just putting it out there. Like, if you're in a relationship and your significant other left a wet towel on the bed, it's literally as simple as being like, hey, you left the wet towel on the bed and now the bed is wet, you know? Do you think you could just try to not do that again? Then the other person might be like, yeah, you know, I forgot. I made a mistake. And then you move on with your day. That is nothing to argue about. And, you know, I'm thinking of other things as well. Like, if we argue about where to get dinner, she'll print a document stating who compromised, who gets to pick next time, and the penalties if the agreement is broken. That's a crazy thing. Like, if two people argue about getting dinner, it's literally as simple as like two people being aware and just saying, both of them coming forward and saying, hey, you know what? Like, for example, if I were the person, I said, hey, you know what? I picked last time, so I don't want to argue about this with you. I want to have a good night with you. So I am going to step down. I'd like you to pick this time. And then next time, can I pick? And it's as simple as that. It's really as simple as that. You know, but it's like she's making these contracts about like minor inconveniences. So I don't even think this is about like her protecting her feelings or protecting her or something. You know, it's crazy. It seems like she's just total work mode. And you can't really do that. You can't do that in a relationship. You know, one thing I'm trying to work on for myself is I talk too much, and I'm not a really good listener, and I'm trying to get better at that. So actually, this channel that I'm working on, making this series, is a part of that. I'm going to yap, and I'm going to just spill my beans and you know, do a stream of consciousness. And I'm hoping that in real life relationships, like, I can step out of work mode and I'll sort of drain out all my yap, and then maybe I'll be a better listener. But yeah, this is super important. It's just like, I think for two people to be in a relationship, I think it's great. And I think it's important to catch up on your day, you know, and hear the highs and lows. And hey, is there anything we need to talk about? And hear about the person's workday and really like understand like, what did this person experience? What did my significant other experience today during their workday? Because it is, for most people, it is 8 or more hours a day. But to treat another person like work, I don't know. It's not right, And I think for her to accuse the person who sent in the story, to accuse him of not taking the relationship seriously and claiming that the contracts are her love language, like that's not a thing, man. I'm pretty sure like science and an author and a researcher boiled down the love languages to what? Quality time, love language, what am I saying? Quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation, gift giving, acts of service, and I think I'm missing some. Are there 5 love languages or 6 or 7? I don't know. Anyways, yeah, he's absolutely not in the wrong here. My advice, I think this guy really should just go to his significant other and just tell her, like, listen, I love what you do for work. I think it's fascinating. I respect what you do. But do you think there's some compromise we can have here? Like, do you think instead of all these contracts, can we do like a weekly or like every 3 or 4 days, can we do a check-in, like a weekly check-in? And like, can we just bring up grievances there and maybe not write them down? Or if you need to write them down, do you think we could scale it down to like sticky notes and then you tell me about the things and we could talk about it? And hopefully she's willing to do that, because I think that if she is taking the relationship seriously, she would be willing to compromise too. So yeah, I think if someone's love language is contracts, like that's kind of a really weird, I don't know what else to say other than joke around and tell this guy to start like giving her love contracts. Like, you agree to love me every single day in this way, and have her sign it as like a joke. But that's like super passive aggressive. I'm just messing around here. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I guess a lot of the wording too about what she said about like penalties and restitution, that's just really weird. So I don't think that's any way to love someone. So I hope this guy can figure it out. Here's the next one. Am I the jerk for giving my nephew a drum set for his birthday after his parents banned noisy toys? My brother and my sister-in-law are the ultimate aesthetic parents. Everything in their house is beige. Beige walls, beige couches, beige clothes for their 6-year-old son, Max. They also have a strict no-noise toys. I can't speak. They also have a strict no noisy toys rule. Max has expressed to me multiple times that he's bored out of his mind and just wants to play music. For his birthday, my brother sent out a gift registry full of wooden beige educational blocks. I decided Max needed some color and volume in his life. I bought him a bright cherry red beginner drum set. When I brought it to the party, Max's eyes lit up. He immediately started banging on it, having the time of his life. My sister-in-law pulled me aside and lost her mind. She called me disrespectful and said I was purposefully trying to ruin the peaceful aura of her home. I told her kids are supposed to make noise and that she was stifling his creativity. She kicked me out of the party. Am I the jerk? This one is really tough. Like always, I can see both sides of the story. I think it's valid, for the parents to be a little pissed off. For someone to get a gift and they know the parents won't be thrilled about it, especially kind of like going against the parents' wishes, I can see like the disrespect side, that argument. On the same token, I think it's also completely unrealistic to be raising kids and thinking it's reasonable and realistic that you're just going to be able to control everything. Like, when you have a kid, you kind of accept the reality that like whatever they gravitate towards, like they're gonna do, like they're their own person. Now I know this is a child, he's 6 years old. But generally speaking, I also see the other side of the story, the person who sent this in. I see their perspective. It's like, this kid Max, he's 6 years old, like he clearly is bored and he doesn't want educational blocks. And like, I do think music is great. I don't think there's anything dangerous or harmful about music. Clearly these parents like just see it as a nuisance, like the noise. But that's kind of like the reality you accept when you decide to become a parent, is that like, I'm sorry, but the only option here, if you want to be good parents, is like, okay, our child is gravitated towards music. We don't really like loud music. Okay, you know what your option is? Soundproof a room. I don't know what else to tell you. Soundproof a room, or maybe get an instrument that like isn't as much of a nuisance. But like if you have a kid and they're just clearly drawn towards something like banging on things. I mean, generally speaking, like after reading the story, it says, okay, Max is bored out of his mind. He wants to play music. I'm not really seeing anything here about like, oh, he loves banging on things. So it's possible that the brother and sister-in-law saw the drum kit and they were like, oh, you're out for blood here. You did a drum kit on purpose. Maybe if they really wanted to do something that wouldn't have been as much of a nuisance, like maybe there could have been like a, I don't know, quieter instrument, like a cello or a violin, or I don't know, something like that. Yeah, you know, as always, I feel like both people are in the wrong here. Like, what I want to say is like, I don't know, I would probably be really pissed off. Like, let's say theoretically I have kids and someone shows up with a huge extravagant gift for my child and they didn't speak to me about it prior and they probably knew that I wouldn't be okay with it. I would be rightfully really pissed off. But then on the other side of things, we see that outside perspective that, okay, this kid is really clearly bored out of his mind, but it's like that family member, the person who sent them the story, like he's not the parents, you know? And it's like, you are, unfortunately, even though you have good intentions, you are kind of overstepping a boundary. Even so, depending on the order that these stories come out with, there was one story that I read in this video where there was a family member who said, hey, you know, this person, your dog, like you're at work all the time and like, you know, give me your dog. Like we could give the dog a better life. Even though there may be good intentions behind that, you're still really overstepping a boundary. And I think that same argument applies here. The person who sent in the story, I know they had good intentions. They see a 6-year-old kid who's bored out of his mind, and he was having a really fun time with the drum kit. But, man, you're really overstepping a boundary by gifting something so extravagant to, like, your niece or nephew, like, without, like, talking about it with the parents first. Like, generally speaking, like, I think you can apply that argument to really anything. Like, if I had kids and they were like older in their teens and then like a family member just showed up with a car, I would rightfully be pissed off because I would be like, dude, like that was something I was looking forward to, like buying my child like their first car or something, or like shopping with them. Like, why did you take that from me? So anyways, but there still is sort of that same thing of just like these parents clearly, you know, like they have a no noisy toys rule. And I don't think that's really realistic, because I think when you have kids, they need to be kids and have fun and play and be loud and like be crazy, and they need to get it all out in like a safe, non-destructive way. And I just don't think noisy toys are anything that anyone is going to get hurt with. I think it's totally just like this luxury, you know, this like minor inconvenience. And we've seen that in other stories, like in this video, just like other random stories, like people are just completely bent out of shape about a minor inconvenience, you know? So both people are totally in the wrong here, unfortunately. Yeah. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to move on to the next one. Here's the next one. My husband faked a business trip to go to a gaming convention, and I found out through a Twitch stream. That is an insane story title. Like, what in the world? Here we go. My husband, 32 male, told me he had a mandatory high-stakes corporate retreat in Denver for 4 days. He packed his suits, kissed me goodbye, and left. On Saturday night, I was bored and scrolling through Twitch watching a popular streamer do a walk around at a massive gaming convention in Florida. Not Florida. What am I saying? I can't speak. Florida. The streamer zoomed in on a crowd cheering at a fighting game tournament, and right there in the front row, wearing a ridiculous foam hat, was my husband. I screen recorded the stream and texted it to him with the caption, "How's the weather in Denver?" He instantly called me panicking. He admitted he lied because he knew I'd be mad. He was spending money on a gaming convention while we were saving for a house. Oh shit, that's horrible. That is despicable. He begged me not to be angry, saying it was his one cheat weekend of the year. I packed his stuff in garbage bags and left him on the porch. All right, yeah. This is really tough. I think her reaction was pretty valid here. I get it that, like, he isn't really doing anything horrible. Like, he could be doing worse things on a weekend that he's lying about. He could be going to, like, Las Vegas and, like, you know, getting with escorts or something insane like that. The fact of the matter, though, is that lying about anything like this, going somewhere and lying about where you're going to go, it's really terrible. Like, I think it takes a certain type of person with a lot of voids and, like, lack of self-worth to do something like that. You know, I mean, like, there's so many different levels of lying here. It's like, he said it was mandatory high-stakes corporate retreat. You know, and it's like, no, that wasn't true at all. He was going to a gaming convention. And not only that, but, like, there's also the house. Like, they were saving for a house. Yeah, you know, so, I mean, in a lot of ways, like, I see the person who sent in the story, like, I think a lot of that is, like, betrayal. Like, you know, a lie is a lie, and a lie this big is huge. And if someone is willing to lie about something this big, like, what else have they been lying about? And, like, what else would they lie about? I think this kind of behavior is really just despicable, and it's completely uncalled for. There's really no valid excuse for anything like this. It's especially despicable because, like, two people saving for a house, I don't know. It's a crazy thing. I just couldn't imagine doing something like this. I think that, like, if he wanted to go to a gaming convention, like, that's an opportunity to, like, I don't know, just be vulnerable and be like, hey, I really want to go to this gaming convention. If it happens yearly, which most gaming conventions do, just put it off for a year or two. Talk to your significant other about it and say, hey, maybe I could take you. Maybe we could make it, like, a fun thing, and maybe we could, like, start a little savings account or something and start saving towards it, like, because I really want to go to this gaming convention. I think that we see that in a lot of the stories that I'm reading, you know, for this first video, is that, like, people are avoiding vulnerability and instead choosing these really destructive and toxic ways of coping with their situation. The right thing to do here for this person's husband is, again, literally just be vulnerable and be like, we don't really have much money, we're saving for a house, but, like, this is a want I need. This is a want and a need of mine. I think it's easier said than done. Like, I get it, you know, like, maybe it's embarrassing to say you want to go to a gaming convention. Maybe you're fearful about, like, getting rejected, but, like, at the end of the day, so much of, like, relationships, whether it be, like, an intimate relationship or just friends, is literally just about speaking up about, like, your wants and needs. So yeah, I think her response was totally justified here. So anyways, let's get on to the next one here. Am I the asshole for calling out my mother-in-law for wearing a white floor-length gown to my wedding? Oh my God, I'm a guy, and even I know that is a horrible decision. You never wear white to a wedding. You don't. Like, only the bride wears white. Everybody knows that. Like, my dog, I don't have a dog. My cats know that. I have cats. Here's the story. I got married last weekend. My mother-in-law, Brenda, has always been overly attached to my husband. During wedding planning, she refused to show me the dress she bought, claiming it was a surprise. I don't know, I'd be skeptical. That's a red flag. Well, the surprise was that she had showed up to my wedding in a literal bridal gown. It was floor length, pure white, and had a lace train. Now, if you're not familiar what a train is, I'm pretty sure it's like the material that is dragging across the ground, like behind the wedding gown. So, like, she was stealing the show here. She was not the bride. When I saw her, I saw red. Before the ceremony, I walked right up to her in front of the groom's party and asked if she was planning on marrying her own son, which is a hilarious thing to say to somebody. It takes balls to say that. She burst into tears and ran to the bathroom. My husband told me I was being entirely too harsh and that I ruined her moment. That's a crazy thing to say. If anyone here is listening who's a husband or a husband-to-be, like a groom, if you're in this situation, don't say that. Because at the end of the day, I'll talk more about it, but at the end of the day, her moment, she's not the one getting married. That's crazy. He actually asked me to apologize so she would come out for the family photos. I refused and told him if she stepped into a photo wearing that dress, I would have the photographer Photoshop it neon green. That's funny. She ended up leaving early. Now my husband's family is calling me a bridezilla. That's a really, really crazy twist of events here. Like, everyone knows you don't show up to someone's wedding wearing white. I think that's like a huge fear because at the end of the day, like for the most part, like the day really is about the bride and the groom. And yeah, I don't know. It's absolutely wild that this person's mother-in-law showed up in a white dress. On top of that, and it's not just a white dress. It was floor length, pure white, and had a train. Now, like, if you're not sure about the way I described it, look up what a train is on a dress. That thing was dragging on the ground 2 or 3 feet behind her. But yeah, rightfully so. The person who sent this in is seeing red and they're angry. And I thought it's hilarious. Oh, are you planning on marrying your own son? I'm going to tell the photographer to Photoshop it neon green. What's really crazy, though, is that this person's soon-to-be husband said, oh, you're being too harsh and that you ruined my mom's moment. That's a really, really crazy thing. Because, like, I don't understand how her soon-to-be husband doesn't understand that, like, it's their moment. It's the bride and groom's moment. Nothing has to do with the mother-in-law. That's the thing. There are moments for, like, the parents. Usually, like, the mother-in-law would have, like, their own dance with their like son. That's the mother-in-law's moment. Like, her moment is not to be wearing a white dress. That's for the bride. Like, that's it. There's no arguing about that. Like, that's just the setup that like society has created. I don't know who created the scheme of a wedding, but like that's just the way it is, and people usually are expected to respect that because the bride and groom are the two people getting married. That's it. It's crazy that this guy asked her to apologize so that she would come out for the family photos. And then it's also crazy that her husband's family is calling her bridezilla because the real bridezilla here is literally the mother-in-law. That's absolutely wild. I don't understand, like, and also the fact that the person who sent this in said that her mother-in-law refused to show the dress she bought, claiming it was a surprise. So, like, that's a lie. Not the statement. What I'm saying is that, like, the mother-in-law lied. You know, for someone clearly, like, the bride asked her, like, hey, let me see your dress. And then for the mother-in-law to say, no, it's a surprise. Like, it was a surprise because she knew that her soon-to-be daughter-in-law would have a problem with it. And that's something I want to yap about for a little bit. People do that, unfortunately. And that's one thing I want to yap about when it comes to pattern recognition. People, unfortunately, will hide things and lie, and they'll omit because they want to avoid dealing with that person's emotions or reaction. Oh, I did something that you wouldn't like. And, like, and then, you know, the person finds out, and then the person who did something that isn't really likable, they say, oh, well, this is exactly why, like, I didn't tell you, you know, because of your reaction. But that is a straw man argument, because the whole reason why someone would get upset is because the person did something that is upsetting. So anyways, it's crazy because it's like this mother-in-law did something that no one would approve of and didn't say anything because she knows no one would approve of it. So it's really crazy. So, like, try to not do that. But unfortunately, so many people do that, and it's so annoying. It really is so annoying. Anyways, I could yap more about it, but, like, I'm a guy, and even I know that this is totally crossing a line here. I don't even know what I would do, too. Like, if I was married, like, for example, like, if I was getting married to someone in the, you know, let's say I was in this situation, you know, spouse's mother-in-law like completely took over the show, and then spouse was defending like mother-in-law who took over the show. I don't know. That would be a really, really big argument. And I would probably get to a point where I would just say, like, listen, like, family is always going to be family, but, like, it's literally me or your mom. Like, you got to pick one. So, I got to say, for the person who sent this in, good on them for having firm boundaries. Like, I respect it a ton. All right, so, next story. My best friend confessed his love to me during his own wedding speech. Okay, wow. I, 28 female, have been best friends with Mark, 29 male, since high school. He just got married to a really sweet girl, Sarah. I was even a groomswoman in his party. During the reception, Mark grabbed the microphone to give his groom speech. He thanked his family, thanked the guests, and then turned to me. In front of 150 people, including his brand new wife, he said, I want to thank my best friend. Actually, she's more than that. I've been in love with her since I was 16. And a piece of my heart will always belong to her. That is weird. If you're getting married to someone, you should be married your best friend. The room went dead silent. Sarah burst into tears and ran out of the reception hall. Oh, shit. I was so horrified I literally just grabbed my purse and ran out of the back door. Mark has been texting me nonstop for 3 days saying I ruined his wedding. What? Huh? By running away instead of supporting him? I haven't responded. There's so much to say about this. This person did not ruin the wedding. It was literally Mark and his goofy speech that ruined it. This is really, really crazy. Like, listen, if you could just take my advice right here. If you're getting married to someone, make sure that you're marrying your best friend. Like, that's the only way. That is pretty much the only situation. Like, if you think about it, it's not rocket scientist, but for some reason, it's crazy. People out there and their opinions and the perspectives that they have. You talk to some people, especially people who are a little bit older in different generations, and they'll go, oh man, especially like if they're separated, like if they were divorced, or maybe they're still married. Actually, oh my God, so many old people where they go, oh man, anything to get out of the house. I don't want to be around my spouse. And look, I get it. I'm not in that situation. I haven't spent 50 years or 60 years with someone, but there are plenty of relationships that I have seen with people who are really, really old, like in their 90s, and like they still love spending all their time with someone. And like, if you're taking any notes here, you're taking any advice that I'm spewing here, you need to make sure that you're like settling. If you're going to marry someone, which is literally like, I commit the rest of my life to you and all of my energy to you, of course, like within reason, like you still have like hobbies and friends and a life, but like I'm committing myself to you. Like you kind of want to do that with someone where you can just spend all your time with them. And like I do think that like two people aren't meant to spend 24/7 together. You know, people usually have jobs and responsibilities and life and hobbies and so forth. But yeah, that's sort of my little yap here, is that it's crazy that this guy Mark is getting married. He has 150 people at his wedding. And then he turns to his friend, the person who sent this in, and he goes, oh, I want to thank my best friend. She's more than that. I've been in love with her since I was 16, and a piece of my heart will always belong to her. Oh, man. If I was the bride, I would be fuming. I would be so hurt. I don't understand what this guy Mark was thinking. Like, he didn't even add on, like, he didn't add, like, and a piece of my heart will always belong to her as a friend. Like, he didn't even add that in. And it's clear that, like, the response that I'm having, and I'm sure that you have to this story, is exactly the response of, like, the guests to the wedding. Hence the sentence, the room went dead silent. Sarah bursts into tears and runs out. And then this person who sent in the story, they were so horrified that they grabbed their purse and they ran out of the back door, you know. And then it's crazy to not take accountability and say, you know what, that speech was really wrong and I made a mistake. Like, I'm sorry, but like I wouldn't want to settle down and get married to someone and move forward if someone had a speech like this. I just wouldn't. But to not take accountability and then blame it on the person and say, oh, you ruined my wedding because you ran away instead of like supporting me. What the hell? What was Mark expecting here? Was he expecting this person, the person who sent in the story, was he expecting her, after the bride runs out and cries, was he expecting this girl to get up and go, oh yeah, My heart will always belong to you too, and I've been in love with you too since I was 16, so get ready to marry your bride. Like, what was Mark expecting here? Mark sounds like a huge freaking idiot. And, you know, again, with some of these things, there's always two to tango. If Mark was I can't speak. If Mark was stupid enough to do something like this, like, I don't know. I understand that sometimes people just, like, make mistakes. I've certainly seen it, and I'm sure you have too. Sometimes people get into long-term relationships and settle down with someone, and like it was someone that they were just dating to get back at someone or make someone jealous, or they were settling, or they couldn't get the person that they wanted or whatever. People do this shit, and it's really, really horrible. So even just beyond like you should marry your best friend, like if you feel like a piece of your heart is belonging to someone who isn't the person you're marrying, you have like a really big problem on your hands. That's really wrong. It really is. I'll yap a little bit more and then I'm going to move on to the next story. But like the last thing I'll say about this is like, if you separate with someone, like two, I think, good rules. If you separate and you've dated someone, like leave the past in the past, and like I just personally recommend don't be friends with that person. It didn't work out, especially if there was a lot of intimacy. Like it's going to cause problems for you in the future. Another thing too is that like if you're friends with someone and like it's never crossed some sort of physical boundary and there really has not been any intimacy, but like you have strong feelings for that person, but you're in a relationship with someone, you're asking for that to blow up in your face. It's really a bad idea. What you need to do is you either need to figure it out and date the person you have feelings with, or leave them behind. If it just doesn't make any sense. Like if your friend, like so let's say you're friend zoned by someone, but you have really strong feelings for them, and then you decide, oh, I give up, and then you're going to try and date other people, but you're still friends with the person that you have feelings for. That's a really messy situation, because you know what's going to happen? You're going to be at your wedding and you're going to say, oh yeah, a piece of my heart belongs to someone who isn't my bride. It's insane. It's crazy. This Mark guy's a freaking dumbass. Anyway, all right, I'm using vulgar language. All right, well, listen, anyways, I had more stories and I'll do them in the next video, but it seems I have yapped too much. So that's about it. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the bell. I'm going to be trying to upload these pretty frequently. Pretty hyped about it. And, I guess if you want to send in stories, send it in, aandaru.ajs@gmail.com. Send them in. Make the title, like, I don't know, Aandaru Yaps or like story time or something. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Hope you have a great day. Hope this helped you get through your day. All right, thanks for listening. Bye.